we're expecting a very robust discussion and engagement, both in the room and virtually as well. At this point in time, I would like to call upon our Chair of TESPOC, Mr. James Turuthi, for the opening remarks. Brother Chair, welcome on stage. And a round of applause for our Chair, please.
Thank you, Jeff. Good. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As Jeff was saying, staki kusalimiwa. So, nasalimia tena. Good morning all. It's with great pleasure that I stand before you today as the Chairman of Technology Service Providers of Kenya. And to remind you, Chairman, Technology Service Providers of Kenya are not us old ISPs and others. We have a wide range of technology service providers. We have ISPs, all manner of technology companies. So on behalf of our members, I welcome you to our session today. We're excited. This gathering marks a significant milestone in our nation's technology journey, bringing together visionaries, innovators, policymakers, industry leaders, and others to explore transformative potential of artificial intelligence within our borders. AI, or artificial intelligence, is no longer a futuristic concept confined to science fiction. It's a powerful force that's reshaping industries, economies, and societies globally. From healthcare, agriculture, finance, and to education, AI is driving efficiencies, enhancing decision-making, and opening up new avenues for innovation. Today we come together to understand where Kenya stands in this rapidly evolving landscape and to chart a path forward together that enhances AI's immense potential for the benefit of all Kenyans. As we delve into the state of AI in Kenya, it's crucial to acknowledge the strides we have made thus far. Our country is home to a vibrant tech ecosystem with numerous startups, research institutions, and tech hubs at the front of AI research and development. I was sitting in one table back there, and it's a vibrant mix of the innovation or technology companies we have today. I won't mention all of them. Please make sure you interact. We have a rich audience, online and in person. So our country is home to a vibrant tech ecosystem. And with these numerous research institutions and tech hubs at the forefront of AI research and development, initiatives such as AI for Good projects are already showcasing how AI can be leveraged to address local challenges, from improving healthcare delivery in remote areas to enhancing agricultural productivity for our farmers. However, the journey has just begun. For Kenya to truly become a leader in AI, we must address several key areas, and I guess that's why we're here. Education and skills development. We need to invest in our people, equipping them with the knowledge and skills required to thrive in an AI-driven world. This includes integrating AI and data science into our educational curricula and providing continuous learning opportunities for professionals and the old ones like me. Infrastructure and investment is important too. Building robust digital infrastructure and fostering an environment conducive to innovation is paramount. We must encourage investments in AI research and development, supporting startups and entrepreneurs who are pushing the boundaries of what's possible. We must also pay attention to ethical and inclusive AI. As we embrace AI, we must also ensure that it is developed and deployed ethically. AI should be a tool for inclusion, not exclusion. We must work together for algorithms that are fair, unbiased, and transparent, ensuring that the benefits of AI are accessible to all segments of our society. Technology service providers of Kenya is big on this, collaborations and partnerships. The journey towards AI is not one that can be undertaken in isolation. Collaboration between government, private sector, academia, and civil society is very important. We must build strong partnerships, both locally and globally, to share knowledge, resources, and best practices. Today's meeting of minds is a testament to our collective commitment to this cause. Over the course of this event, we will hear from leading experts in the field and engage in thought-provoking discussions. We'll also explore innovative solutions in the field, engage in thought-provoking discussions, and explore innovative solutions that can propel Kenya into the future. I encourage each one of you to actively participate, share your insights, seize the opportunities that lie ahead. Even those online, we're keen to hear from you. In closing, let us remember that AI is not just about technology. It's about people. It's about improving lives, solving problems, and creating a better future for our nation, Kenya. Together, we can ensure that Kenya not only keeps pace with the global AI revolution, but also leads it with vision, integrity, and purpose. I thank you all very much, and I appreciate you all making time to be with us. Let us embark on this exciting journey together. Asante sana.
I will ask for a better round of applause for our chair, tafadhali. And I do that because of two reasons. First of all, he's a man who is providing us this lovely breakfast. So for those who have just gotten in case you haven't gotten yourself a cup of coffee, gotten your breakfast, you can please do that. The second reason is also I've been reliably informed upon a chair. You're the last signatory to my check. So those applause needs to be right so that we get that check signed, isn't it? Thank you very much. And he spoke to the issue of AI being not the barbarian at the gate, because very many times we're looking at AI and speaking to the fact that it's leading to loss of jobs. Where do we go from here? But how does it actually help us do what we want to do? There's a very interesting quote I saw the other day of someone speaking to the fact that they don't want AI to come and take them from their jobs so that they can spend their time in the house washing dishes and laundry. They want technology to help them wash the dishes and laundry so that they can do their jobs better, write poetry, do art. And that's what people want to see. They hope at the end of this artificial intelligence tunnel, so to speak. And as we move forward, we have seen what technology can actually do when it comes to digital activism in Nairobi, Kenya. Gen Z has been a force to reckon with the world over. They use digital technology. We saw how AI was used to create videos, create images, songs. Hollywood was singing Anguka Nayo. That's what AI did. It amplified it to the nth degree. And that's why we're looking at how we can actually take this forward. And the next person on stage is actually coming to speak to these particular issues as well. I'd like us to welcome Mr. Alfred Ongere of AI Kenya to speak about the AI industry in Kenya and the impact of bad governance. A round of applause for him as he comes on stage, please.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Alfred Ongere. I'm the founder and program lead at AI Kenya, which is Kenya's largest AI-focused tech community. And we've been in operation for 7 years. We've won various awards for bringing both technology and non-tech audiences to discuss, nurture, and shape the AI ecosystem in Kenya. Our community currently has over 7,000 members over the 7 years of operation. So I'll move forward to cover the landscape of AI in Kenya. And I'd like to say, contrary to what most people believe, we are not a vacuum in AI. We are innovating and consuming this technology, and we've been doing this, for a while. It's just that because of the hype that came up over the past 2 years, in November 2022, when ChatGPT came out and got over 100 million users, then everyone started paying attention. So I will move forward to cover this in 5 dynamics: education, talent, the tech community, industry, some applications, and of course regulation. So for education and skills, I personally, I'm a graduate of telecommunication engineering, and I can confidently tell you that the education I received provided a very strong foundation for me to participate in the AI economy as someone who is building the technology and someone who can also research. So we already have sufficient foundational education being provided by universities across computer science, electrical engineering, statistics. And these courses provide a strong base for professionals who want to build and improve AI software and hardware. We also have various organizations that are providing skill training for those who wish to learn AI specifically as a technology. So you could have someone in BCom who wants to transition and become a data scientist or a data analyst. We have organizations providing that particular service. Talent. So based on the strong foundational education that is being provided, we have a huge supply of entry and intermediate talent in data science and computer science, and the number of experts in different technologies and AI fields has grown over the years. The setup of software and product development centers by Google, Microsoft serves as a strong testament of the talent that Kenya has to offer to the global tech and AI economy. And I'd also like to note that we have a big chunk of task force from Kenya who are working internationally for companies in the AI industry. When I started AI Kenya in 2017, you could only get up to 10 to 20 job vacancies in the data science, machine learning space in a year here in Kenya. So fast forward to right now, we get about 500 to 1,000 vacancies per year. That shows you the amount of appetite that organizations have in terms of looking for talent to either create these technologies or to leverage these technologies in their organization. Tech communities and professional bodies. The tech community in Kenya has really played a very big role to the growth of not only artificial intelligence, but other technologies. And we have over 20, 30 tech communities in Kenya, with a few of them which specialize in technology as a topic. For those who are not familiar with tech communities, a tech community is a collection of professionals, whether students or industry professionals, who come together to share knowledge, who share common interests in a particular technology, and they come together to grow together in terms of whenever someone has a bug or a challenge, they can help each other out, organizing technical and non-technical workshops so that people can have skill and so on. I'll then move over to industry, and for this would be a three-pronged approach. We have organizations that leverage AI as a technology. We have organizations that build and apply AI as a technology. And then we have organizations that contribute to a specific value chain in the economy. For example, data annotation. We have all of these, and of course, many of us in this room are already consumers of generative AI platforms such as ChatGPT, Cloud, Gemini or Gemini, and so on. One of the key focus areas for AI Kenya has been highlighting the current applications of AI and the current startups building AI, so that we can aspire anyone who wants to get into this particular industry, and also attract investors who want to come and invest in tech startups in Kenya. So I'll move forward to just share some brief examples across different industries, starting with agriculture. So we have startups like Apollo Agriculture, who are leveraging satellite data and machine learning to enable better credit decisions and automating operations. This approach keeps costs low and enhances processes, supporting farmers across Kenya. We have Grow Intelligence, which was recently closed, but I feel we still need to highlight their contribution. They provided decision-making tools, solutions, and analytics to empower the food, agriculture, and climate economies, not only in Kenya, but across the world. We have Lima Labs that employs AI-powered machine vision systems to monitor crop growth and weather conditions. And by taking images every 30 minutes and analyzing them, it learns and adapts to optimize crop yield relative to environmental conditions. In the banking and fintech sector, which is one of the most data-intensive sectors in the country, AI plays a pivotal role in credit scoring and fraud detection. So companies like Branch, Tala, M-Shwari utilize AI algorithms to assess credit worthiness and detect fraudulent activities, providing easier access to financial services. In the NGO sector, a very interesting example, we have organizations such as Missing Child Kenya, who utilize face aging technology to find missing children, increasing the chances of reuniting families and ensuring child safety. So in this case, you've lost your child, but you only have a picture of them when they were 5 or 10 years old. But it has been 10 years and you're still looking for your child, but you don't know how your child will look like in 10 years. So AI is able to generate a picture of your child, of how they look like in 10 years, and when you circulate that online, you stand better chances of finding your child. In market analytics and market intelligence, we have companies such as AI-Fluence, which is transforming market analytics, market intelligence, and influencer marketing in Kenya by offering valuable insights for businesses to make data-driven decisions and engage with their target audience effectively by use of influencers. Still in the same area for marketing, we have the Bantering Billboard, which was a campaign by Safaricom that used computer vision to create customized messages in interactive advertising, and it engaged consumers on a personalized level, enhancing marketing campaigns' impact. In customer support and service delivery, we have the example of Jacaranda Health, which is in the healthcare industry, that uses instant customer support by processing messages from pregnant and expectant mothers and prioritizing those messages so that the messages that seem to have an emergency are prioritized first, as opposed to messages that just want to get information. In the data labeling industry, we have companies like Sama, Cloud Factory, Stepwise, and FastTagger, which specialize in data preparation and labeling. And these services help streamline data processing, making it more accurate and cost-effective for companies training AI models, not only locally, but internationally. For government services, we have organizations such as Smile Identity, which are revolutionizing identification in Kenya using face matching technology. And this enables secure and efficient identification of individuals, contributing to quick access to services that require government identification. In healthcare, the last example is we have Tambua Health, which is an innovative solution that utilizes AI's cameras and sensors attached to smart devices, such as smartphones, for quicker disease diagnosis. They play a crucial role in improving healthcare accessibility and diagnosis in Kenya. Lastly, I want to touch on activism. During the recent finance bill protests, various Kenyans came up with different GPTs to tackle topics such as the finance bill and social health insurance fund. This enables citizens to have various questions on the bills answered in a familiar language, and so better outcomes in terms of understanding of the proposed bill. These few examples showcase how AI is not only transforming these sectors, but also fostering a culture of innovation and technological advancement in Kenya. With continued investment and collaborations, the future of AI in Kenya holds even greater promise for addressing complex challenges and driving economic growth. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Alfred, speaking to where we are and how professionals in the space and the professionals in the space also do reap dividend, even from the education that they get as AI technology evolves. So we've heard what the developers, the practitioners are saying on the way forward. I think it's time we also hear from the government, their posture, their outlook on where we go from here, policy-wise, and what it holds for the country at large. We do have a representative from the Office of the Special Envoy on Technology, Leonida Mutuku, to give us that. A round of applause for Leonida as she comes on stage.
Pretty short. It's okay, I can just hold it. Good morning, everybody. So maybe just to correct, actually working directly with the Ministry of ICT, MICDE, and they are putting a request for support to put together an AI strategy for Kenya, which I will briefly talk through about. And so working very closely with the Office of the Special Envoy, but here will be a representative, quasi-representative of the ministry. I have to, all protocols observed. So my name is Leonida Mutuku, and I work with the Local Development Research Institute, which is a think tank based in Nairobi, Kenya. We support African countries in their efforts to end extreme poverty, hunger, and inequality. And my research focus is AI, so accountable and inclusive AI. And I am one of the consultants working with the ministry to prepare this strategy. So I wanted to take a few moments just to walk you through how we're thinking about the strategy. And then later on, we'll have my colleague giving you an overview of some of the policies and strategies we've studied around the world as part of this exercise. And then finally, I will dive deeper into the content of the strategy and where we are to date. So we intend this process to be very participatory. So we have held since the launch of the strategy process, which was on 9th of April this year, and I'm happy to see a number of you in the room have already been part of some of our stakeholder engagements. We have had 3 stakeholder engagements, primarily with the intention of fleshing out what the concerns for Kenyans are on AI. So the stakeholder convenings have been very diverse and had a number of industry players represented there. But also beyond just stating what the concerns of Kenyans are in AI, also trying to understand then how then can a strategy start addressing some of these. And later on, I'll provide why we're thinking about a strategy and the content of the strategy. But before I dive into that, so as part of the strategic convenings we've had to date, we got quite a long reading list from members of the stakeholder group and have used that as well as our expertise to put together an environmental analysis of AI in Kenya. The other thing that we've done with the stakeholder group is also started formulating what is our vision and mission for AI in Kenya and how the strategy can articulate that. But at the same time, also thinking strongly about what are the governance needs that Kenya at this moment in time has for AI. And so we know that there's a lot happening in the sector, but how can we galvanize that and have one strategic positioning as a country on what we think about AI and how it impacts our lives as industry stakeholders, but also as citizens and ultimate beneficiaries of these technologies. So as part of this work, the ministry has asked us to situate AI in the context of emerging technologies, so not just thinking at AI alone, but also how it fits in this broader context of emerging technologies, so that the strategy document is a little bit agile and can also start being co-opted or adapted for different emerging technologies as they arise. So, we've had 3 convenings, 2 half-day convenings, as well as a 3-day workshop we did in Naivasha. And now that formed what we'd call the background for the strategy. And currently we are in the phase of primary data collection, which enables us to better understand what are the strategic options for us as a country, but also ensure that as part of our inclusive process, we talk to as many Kenyans or representatives of Kenya stakeholder groups in the development of this strategy. So I'll stop here before I speak substantive matter on the strategy and let my colleague Florence, who is supporting us with this process, to just briefly give you an overview of what is happening from a global perspective, from a regional perspective, and then now you can start seeing where we spring up from in terms of Kenya's AI strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonida. A quick good morning to everyone. So, as Leonida mentioned, my name is Florence Ogonjo. I am a research fellow at CIBIT, which is the Center for Intellectual Property and Information Technology at Strathmore University. So I will just do a brief overview of what the global context presents in terms of AI policy, and then bring it back and look at it from a regional context, which will help you contextualize it within what Kenya's AI policy would ideally look like. So looking at it from global context first, we know that AI technologies have promoted a lot of talks within global policy development and legal regulatory frameworks. So specifically, we note the fact that we now have, there now exists the EU AI Act, which ideally is the first binding AI legislation that is to exist on a global region. And so with that specific act, we've seen a bit of traction being created with a rush to create an AI policy, because it's noted that mostly binding policies or policy that tends to have impact within the world emanates from the European Union, similar to what you'd have with the GDPR and the Brussels effect for that. But that's not to say that what they have is one size fits all and will apply to everyone else. It just applies within their specific context. So what we note with respect to the EU AI policy is that they take a risk-based approach towards AI policy and AI regulation within that particular region. So noting that it takes a risk-based approach basically means that they look at the general risks that AI is likely to have, and then policy is sort of surrounded or created within that respect. And also in consideration of other multiple respects with respect to impacts on development, with respect to how it will impact businesses and such like matters. Then we looked at also the UK and how it looks at AI regulation, and they take more of a safety-based approach in terms of their strategy in AI regulation. So their safety-based approach it's sort of more human-centric, and it's based more on trying to understand or trying to bring in safety impact. So how can the use of artificial intelligence be used in a safe manner? How can it be developed in a safe manner that cuts across the board within the different sectors in which it is being leveraged? Then we have a short insight on how AI is also being regulated within the United States of America, and they take more of a human-centric approach, and this is noted from their Artificial Intelligence Bill of Rights, the Artificial Intelligence, I hope I'm saying that right, their Bill of, the Artificial Intelligence Bill of Rights, so they take more of a human-centric approach in that they try and develop specific rights that emanate from the use, development of artificial intelligence, and how AI is looked at within its entire life cycle. So from a global context, we note that there are specific countries other than the core three that we've mentioned that have had attempts at developing numerous ethical AI guidelines, ethical AI principles, binding recommendations, binding guidelines as well. So some of these countries are noted to be around Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada. So Canada developed a couple of also principles that relate to the use of AI. Then we have India, Indonesia, we have Taiwan, we have South Korea, which are also sort of have developed specific either guidelines or principles with respect to the utilization of AI or leveraging AI within their specific countries and also within specific sectors. So it's looked at more from a national perspective, then they move it to more of a sectoral perspective. And you'll note that the regulation of AI in most of these jurisdictions or most of the decisions, especially for the US, is more it's more sector regulated as opposed to emanating from government regulation. So you'll find that it's more tech, private sector who have developed most of the AI guidelines or principles that they use to regulate their specific elements, which is different from what the EU does, because the EU is more government-facing. It's that the regulation of AI comes more from the regional body and a government perspective, if looked at from that context. So with that, that sort of brings a narrowing down of what the global perspectives generally look like, which is noted to be the fact that there is AI regulation in some regions. In some regions, it's still at its nascent stages. It's still starting more like what we have within the African continent. But the only distinctive characteristic is that they have a bit more binding regulations with that. So looking at regional perspectives, bringing it back to the African continent, there are specific governance trends that have emanated, and there's a growing notion that there is a need to create AI regulation and AI policy, just noting it from the fact that AI is being utilized within the African continent and has been utilized within the African continent well over the past 10 years without any regulation per se. But then again, you cannot regulate what you do not know. So that brings in a core element into that, and the fact that also technology tends to supersede elements of regulation more often than not. So within the African perspective, we note that there are the elements of regulation emanate from creations of national AI strategies and which bring out national AI goals and areas of focus that specific countries intend to take when they're looking at how AI is being leveraged in the countries, and elements or areas in which regulation would focus on. So for the African continent, we have countries like Mauritius, Egypt, Rwanda, Senegal, Ghana, and now we have Kenya. There's also Benin that has a national AI strategy. There's also Ethiopia also has a draft national AI strategy, though that's I don't know that it has been finalized yet, or rather I don't think it has been finalized yet. It's still in its draft elements. However, we note that there's specific elements that each of these countries look at when they are looking at their national AI policies and their national AI plans. So for Egypt, for example, they take more of a developmental agenda when they're discussing the narrative of AI within their country and discussing what particular plan that is. So it's given more on how leveraging AI would assist in meeting their specific development goals. And in meeting those specific development goals, considerations to ethics are given, considerations into sectoral characteristics of areas in which AI is being leveraged are also given. Then we have Mauritius, which was the first African country in Africa to have its national AI strategy way back in 2018. So for Mauritius, they take more of unique element towards their national AI strategy, where they look at AI within a sectoral basis. So transportation, their blue economy, the government AI in government, AI in education, AI in health, and they look at it from that perspective, from more of a sectoral perspective. And the strategy seems to note that the regulation of AI for them might be on a sector basis as opposed to entirely overarching, because how AI is leveraged within the different sectors is predominantly different, though there's specific elements and characteristics to it that might be the same. And they focus more on how AI will propel economic growth and enhance quality of life for the Mauritian state. So that's how Mauritius is looking at its national AI policy. So then we have Rwanda, which was a bit more recent. I think it came out last year with its national AI strategy. And their policy basically brings out a roadmap of how the state can harness the benefits of artificial intelligence while mitigating risks that AI brings. So their policy is specifically also grounded on their master plan, or their Vision 2050 master plan, which allows for them to create a concurrent working environment to achieve specific main goals that have been highlighted within the Act. So for them, also sustainable and inclusive growth is something that is big for them. An element that is also big in the national AI strategy is growing the talent pool within Rwanda to advance artificial intelligence and the creation of specific hubs within Rwanda to advance artificial intelligence. Something also that is very unique to the Rwanda national AI strategy is the development of responsible AI, I think, office for them to be able to specifically look at how AI is being responsibly developed, concentrate on specific ethical principles or guidelines in ensuring that responsible AI is being developed within the country. For Senegal and Benin, they take in, similar components to what Rwanda has in terms of looking at it from a sectoral basis and advancing that. You'll also find that there's mentions of responsible ethical artificial intelligence and advancing that. So their regulatory elements and components also speak to that. So then we have now Ask Kenya, who are also trying to get onto the step of creating a national AI strategy. So putting all that in one box, we now have and looking at it from a regional perspective, we now have the continental AI strategy from the AU, which was endorsed about a month ago. And so the continental strategy in itself hasn't been made public yet. However, prior to that, they did publish a white paper and a roadmap on how artificial intelligence would be perceived and how its regulation would be perceived holistically for the African continent, and how they would be able to drive sort of a harmonized goal or perspective in which we look at AI and the regulation of AI within the African continent. So with that, we see quite a bit of traction with respect to AI regulation, a concentration and a focus on the fact that there is actually a need for regulation for artificial intelligence within the African continent, which also brings us to elements of sort of trying to catch up with what exists within the global world and having a competitive edge, so to speak, within that perspective. So yeah, that's basically it for global and regional context.
Thank you so much for that. So where are we now with our strategy process, having done that environmental and regional scoping from a global and regional perspective? So I would say that we are in the phase of primary data collection, which we are conducting in a number of ways. We are conducting key informant interviews, specifically with government entities whose sectors have been identified to have those immediate adverse impacts from AI. We also have a number of expert interviews with people who are very knowledgeable about the technology itself, beyond just being situated in the context or in the country. And finally, we have focus group discussions with various interest groups. So as part of the work we've been doing, we did a stakeholder mapping analysis, which we also looked at from an influence and interest perspective, who needs to be consulted and who will be affected by a document or a policy like the strategy. So we are hoping that we can continue engaging with a number of you. I also want to take an opportunity to introduce the other consultants. Of course, I'm not doing this by myself. So in the room we have Brian Omwenga, seated at the back, as well as Dr. Melissa Omino, who are bringing in their expertise from a governance perspective from a use case perspective, which I lead, as well as from infrastructure perspective, which also looks at the general supporting environment for AI to thrive in this space. So we have formed a smaller working group that is helping us draft this strategy document. Collectively, I think we're about 30, so ourselves plus the working group, and we will do our best to produce a very cohesive document, but we did want various perspectives from industry, but also from the Kenyan represented in the actual drafting. After the drafting process, we will move into the next step, which is validation and public participation, where the larger community of stakeholders, but also Kenyans can give their views on the draft strategy document. The other thing I'd forgotten to mention is that we are having town halls across the country with various youth, citizens, ICT innovators, as well as providers who are also likely to be impacted by the strategy. So before I wrap up, I just wanted to highlight a couple of concerns that we have synthesized from the various workshops and convenings and consultations we've had to date. I won't go in depth into what the text of the concern is, but from a topical perspective, I think the first concern we're having around AI is job displacement and economic impact, which was mentioned by the speakers before me. There's the issue of the digital divide and inclusive development. And as TESPOC, we are looking at you because I think this is a place you heavily influence. We are looking at data sovereignty and privacy. I mean, AI technologies need a lot of training data sets, so what does that mean for us? We are looking at ethical AI and human rights. So how do we ensure that as we are building and deploying AI in our country, we are espousing various guidelines that ensure that AI systems are used fairly and responsibly. We are thinking about skills gaps and brain drain. Alfred mentioned that, yes, there's a lot going on, but if it's not appreciated in this context, we will lose a lot of talent. Government is adopting AI, so that means what is public sector adoption and service delivery using AI? How does that look like, even from a procurement perspective? Finally, we're thinking about, a couple of more things. Environmental sustainability. It's a big concern for us as a country. AI systems, of course, are known to degrade resources. So how do we think about concerns around and how AI impacts environmental goals? Local innovation and competitiveness. We do want our ecosystem to thrive, our tech ecosystem to thrive in this new age of an AI-enabled economy. And then finally, we have regulatory preparedness. Are we prepared for regulation? What does that look like? And how does the strategy start creating roadmaps for what policy on AI looks like in Kenya? So I think with that, I've covered where we are and where we're going, and I'm happy to engage on any specific questions around the process. Thank you. Yeah, no, it can be done later, but just letting you know we are in the room. Thanks.
After such a comprehensive presentation, there has to be a round of applause for that. Surely, guys. Hey. Thank you so much for that, Leonida, just setting the stage and letting us know from a global standard where the strategy is, and just distilling it all the way to where we are as a country and what needs to be done. So as the discussion evolves, we've spoken to the practitioners, the developers, where they're at. We've seen where we are from a strategy level. Want to take it forward and look at this particular discussion from a legal lens. Let's talk about the state of artificial intelligence and robotics. Where are we with that as far as the law is concerned? What should we be looking at down the road as we speak to this particular artificial intelligence bill that has been proposed? And to take us through that particular discussion, I'd like to call on stage Mr. Michael Murungi. He leads Google in terms of its government affairs and public policy as well, to speak to this particular legal issue. A round of applause for Michael as he comes on stage.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Right? Jeff, yes. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I represent not just Google, but Google is a member of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance and also a member of the American Chamber of Commerce in Kenya, which is an association that is comprised of not just US-based businesses, but even Kenyan businesses that share common values about developing Kenya's economy. And I stand here as a member of the American Chamber of Commerce, who joined AI Kenya and the Creative Economy Working Group in filing a cross-petition to Parliament in response to a petition that has been filed by a citizen about regulating AI and robotics. I think that's the context in which we're standing here. Because I think, and I'm so glad that Florence and Leonida have spoken before, because they set a really good context for what I'm about to say. And the last statement, actually, that Leonida made was about the policy setting the ground for what legal interventions are to be applied or made after. That's a very important statement, because it underscores the proper approach to lawmaking, which is first we have a policy or a national strategy, and then after that we have laws. And this working group that Leonida is a part of, that was set up by the Minister for ICT, the working group on policy and legislative reforms, that is also looking at AI strategy, was enacted, was it gazetted last year, and it therefore predated the petition that was filed by, I don't know, they're not here, I guess, but I forget, it's an association referred to as the Robotics Society of Kenya. This was filed, it was, I think that petition that it filed in Parliament was filed after the working group was established by the Minister. And that's an important point to highlight, because in their petition, and of course under the Constitution, as you know, every citizen is empowered by the Constitution to ask Parliament to legislate on any matter that concerns Kenyan citizens. So that is the capacity in which, and I believe in good faith, that the petition was filed. And in the petition, they were urging Parliament to set up a body to regulate AI and robotics in Kenya, and to set standards for the deployment of AI across Kenya. And by regulate, that it means that the proposal is that, I won't go into too much of the details, but generally the proposal is that before anybody can deploy AI and robotics in Kenya, they should be accredited or licensed, or whichever term you want to use, by this government body. And this government body will be the one that is overseeing standards for AI and deployments of AI in Kenya. So I think the reason that that cross petition was filed to oppose that petition, the primary reason actually was because already the Ministry of ICT had already established a process for gathering the opinions of Kenyans and building an approach towards AI governance. And I think that's important, because when we're talking about AI, I've heard so many things said about what AI is, as that it's transformational, it's revolutionary. Some have said that they compare this AI moment we are in to when electricity was, emerged. Some have said it's close to when we actually invented the wheel. And the term GPT is very commonly used. I think in technical terms, GPT refers to Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which sounds very colloquial and technical. But someone said that I agree with them when they said that to lay people like myself, I consider myself a techie, and most Kenyans, I think, I like to explain it as general purpose technology. A technology that can be applied across so many fields of human endeavor that it is transformative across so many sectors. Because when we are talking about technology that can detect breast cancer in a mammogram better than a human doctor, when you're talking about a technology that has, as Alfred said, enabled our young people to be more civically engaged and to actually query a law by using generative AI technology, we are talking about a once-in-a-lifetime or once-in-a-generation kind of technology. So when we are meeting such a moment, I think the best way is to have a moment of reckoning, as opposed to rushing to regulate and say, let's not do this, or let's have a government body to vet this. It's first calls upon us to do what many governments or many institutions did when maybe electricity emerged, and ask themselves, who are we? This was probably in the USA. Who is America when it comes to electric power? Who do we define ourselves to be in terms of what we want electricity to mean for our people and for our country? And I think it's also a moment of reckoning for Kenya. It's a moment for us to ask ourselves as Kenyans, what are our values when it comes to AI? What potential does AI hold to meet our goals as a nation and as a people? And even more importantly, what are the risks of AI that we need to mitigate? So this AI opportunity is not one to be met with, I humbly submit, it's not one to be met with petitioning the government and asking the government to set up a body to regulate and vet AI. I think we first need to, as the leader has pointed out, have a framework. And this is an approach, as Florence has said, that has been taken by many countries, many of whom we consider our peers and our competitors in ICT and innovation, like Rwanda. Rwanda did not start saying, let's have an ICT, or rather AI bill, or policy, or regulation. The question was, how can, actually, this is very inspiring. Rwanda's vision, in the strategy I saw it, is to establish Rwanda as a global center of innovation in AI research and development. Just think about that. That being the vision, then everything coalesces towards making that happen. Of course, they do acknowledge the risks, and they are, as Florence has said, setting up a mechanism to mitigate those risks. So I think when we look at the approach that we want to take as Kenya, we've had enough examples from Florence on how nations have first gone into asking, how can we come up with a strategy and a policy before we go into the actual legislation, even is required. And this is not just Rwanda, even intergovernmental organizations like UNESCO that have come up with recommendations on ethics on AI. Kenya actually, last November in 2023, attended the Global AI Summit in Bletchley in the UK. And the outcome of it was the Bletchley Declaration, which in a nutshell actually endorsed the approach that nations should consider the benefits, a risk-based approach towards regulating AI and governing AI. That includes an evaluation of the benefits and the risks, and a decision forward based on a framework that encompasses broad-based stakeholder consultation, national ethos in building an AI governance approach. So Kenya having signed that actually means Kenya is committed towards the approach of having a national moment of reckoning first, looking at policies and goals and national ethos, and then progressing thereafter, if necessary, towards legislation. So I think we are, as I close, I want to say that we are now living in a post-finance bill era, if I may use that term. And some of the ways that we approach governance have fundamentally changed in Kenya. I think when we went through that, I think it was a national moment of reckoning, I can say, that came with the protests, and some changes have been done, and others are still pending to be done within government. And the way that the young people and even the older generation also are capturing that moment of national pride combined with the need for things to change in how we approach governance and the elevated levels we saw of civic participation, it means that some things are going to change. And some of us have been telling ourselves that, especially in the ICT sector, that some of the legislation that have been proposed before do not even stand in the new paradigm that we are in. One of those, of course, is this petition that has been filed asking for the government to set up this body that will regulate AI deployment. I think it's fine if that becomes the end product of a national process that has been described here by Florence and Leonida. But first, it is important to actually reckon with how do we approach it. If the end result is that, yes, let's set up this body that regulates, then it will have had the character of being informed by the views of the majority of Kenyans. And I'm saying that because when you combine that with the other bill that has been raised by the Ministry of ICT, the ICT Authority Bill, that also proposes to vet and accredit ICT professionals, which is a very tough term to define, and to license yearly, I think, ICT practitioners. In fact, I don't know if I'll fall into that category myself. I'm not an ICT expert. I am an expert in law and public policy, but I work in a technology company. The risk of that now, when you combine those two bills, is that we are going back to the era before the finance bill, where we are setting up a gatekeeping establishment, a gatekeeping government bureaucracy that is there to extract some money and give you a license for you to innovate. I think we are way beyond that, and I'm saying this because I have many friends in government, and I'm saying this because I believe the also frame of mind in approaching some of these governance issues have changed post finance bill protest. So the ICT petition, and I think this is a submission that I can make to the team that is advising the government on the AI strategy. That petition needs to be set aside because Parliament should not be considering setting up an AI bill when the whole of the country is focused on setting up a vision of the country that is competitive with Rwanda and other countries in how we approach AI. So if we already legislating while we are making policy, it's like burning the candle from both ends, and that is not a good way to go about it. And then secondly, the ICT Authority Bill needs to be reconsidered. If you recall, a similar bill under a different name was alive a while back. It was called the ICT Practitioners Bill. Parliament thought for some reason, and this was against the wishes of the industry, the then ICT minister also opposed it and advised the president, do not sign this bill. Parliament passed it nevertheless, which says a lot about our legislative making process, that against the majority of the will of the people, against industry experts, a bill is passed, against the ICT minister. And thankfully, the then president declined to sign the bill. But now, the same thinking has gone into another bill now from the ICT ministry. I think it's really unfortunate, but I think since it's a draft for us to give comments, let's give our comments as I'm giving mine now, and ask that it also be put aside while we work on the AI strategy. And I think the committee is not working on an AI strategy, but also working on many other reforms for the ICT sector. Thank you so much. I yield and close my remarks.
Thank you so much for that, Michael. Of course, just giving, sorry about that, his cross petition as far as the bill is concerned. Also going further, I feel, from just not speaking to the AI bill, but also speaking to the broader context of legal issues as ICT practitioners, or for those professionals within the ICT space as well. And I think that last statement that he gave, his appeal from the heart, online, you know, Nambianga, anguka nayo. That's what you are telling them. Everybody in the government. I think it has been heard loud and clear. At this particular point in time, of course, as we move it forward, we speak to the matter of regulation as well. And to take us through that, as we said, this is a hybrid event, so we have contributions in the room. We'll also have a presentation done virtually as well. So we shall wait to see if that connection is up and running for Dr. Njero to give us a presentation from the Communications Authority Regulatory Sandbox. As you get that up and running, to see if that link is in order for that, it's not a discussion if it's one way. So what we suggest is, even as we go through these particular presentations, if you have a question, a suggestion, a pushback from what has been said or not said, please have them with you. You can jot them down, because after the next discussion, we shall be opening the floor. So whatever suggestion you have, if there's an issue you feel has not been spoken to, and it is dear to you, this is where we bring it out. As you said, discussions are only discussions if they're two-way. So we've had a lot from this side. We'll come to you as well for your take on what has been presented so far. So just want to see if we can get Dr. Njero online now. Okay, it's another day of man versus machine. I think machine won, man nil at this particular time. We shall try once more on that, but we shall move it forward as far as that's concerned and call on stage CEO TESPOC, Fiona Songa, to take us through this particular part as well. A round of applause for Fiona, please.
Morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Jeff. I think we're just going to go, having heard what has been shared, we're going to go into our panel session. And just Salma, check with our online panelists are also available. We had hoped that the regulator, the Communication Authority, would be available to share with us on the regulatory sandbox for emerging technologies, what it is all about, so that everybody can understand and know how to plug in with the Communications Authority on the regulatory sandbox. But in a nutshell, the regulatory sandbox is pretty much a tool that regulators around the world are using for emerging technologies. What it does when you have a service you're providing in emerging technology, instead of going in to get a license first and regulations, you work reporting to the regulator, given certain guidelines on issues that they want to see and understand on, which then determines the scope of what the AI should cover, the depth of what AI should, of the emerging technology and what it should cover. And that then helps the regulator to be able to have in place, there may be guidelines for different sectors, because as you have heard, it starts at a national level for AI and then it cascades to sectors. So there may be need for sectoral guidelines, there may be need for co-regulation with other regulators of other sectors. When you think of education, when you think of health, when you think of finance and banking and insurance, so there's a need for co-regulation. And so our sandbox then becomes a tool that helps us to be able to work with the regulator, the different regulators, to see how we can deploy and make sure that emerging technology works for our good. So that said and done, I'll then quickly move to our panel. We have got our panelists. I hope that they are available. Ben Roberts, is he on? We've got Kirim Mwangi, is she here? Please come to the stage if you're here. We've got Florence. We had John Walubengo, I haven't seen him. And I don't know that he's online as well. Then we've got Murjan Hussein and Ray Allen. We have tried to make sure we have diverse representation. Ben Roberts representing the traditional technology space. We want to talk about how so far AI has impacted all these different areas. We've got Mkiri, who's an AI practitioner in the health sector, health space. So we want to hear from her on how AI is impacting her work and the fact that there are several regulators that she has to deal with in as far as her activities are concerned. We've got Florence from CIPID, she'd already been introduced earlier, coming in to talk about human rights and AI from a human rights perspective, a civil society. What are the things that are key and important when it comes to AI? And then finally, we've got a young gentleman called Ray Allen. He has a bit of idea on AI, but he's anxious, the Gen Z generation that are anxious for their future. And so we'll also give him a chance to share what he thinks the future should hold, as well as ask us, the professionals in this room, questions you may have on how we want to use AI. He's listened to all of us talking about AI. How do we want to use AI? And what are the depths of the scopes of within which AI should work? Then I want to call back onto the podium Michael Murungi, who's our legal expert for now on this, to come and join us. So that then, in as far as this conversation is concerned, I think having a legal person gives us a good balance to be able to address human rights, legal issues, ICT AI practitioner from a legal point of view, the vision of the youth. Where are we swallowing it as we think that we are taking the right legal approach in terms of addressing issues? And I think there then is our panel. The session will be very brief, will not be long, because we want to open up the floor for an open session where the participants, both online and in the room, are going to share their views and ideas on the things that they feel that should be addressed. So to get us started, I'll start off with Mkiri. Kindly share with us your experience and your anxieties, your challenges insofar as deploying AI has, over the last couple of months we've been doing it has been.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Mkiri Muriki from Neurohabs Africa, and we are impacting healthcare using artificial intelligence. Just to give a bit of background, I have come from business, but I have experience in engineering. So I'm what would be called a business engineer, and currently we are democratizing access to healthcare across Africa through diagnostic imaging and by leveraging artificial intelligence. Now, over the last couple of months, we've been able to do our clinical validation in Kenya and Senegal, and we've experienced quite the challenges in our development processes and also how we get to deploy or bring to the market. Firstly, our motivation was the fact that within Africa, we have a huge gap in provision of radiology services. In Kenya, we have 200 radiologists, and being developers and engineers, we're like, we can solve this using artificial intelligence. We can have a software that is able to take a look at all medical images, provide all identifiable pathologies, and perform way better than a radiologist who has a 60% accuracy typically, and we can track this up and ensure that people have better healthcare within Africa. But now, one of the challenges that we experienced is collection of data. So we walked to the hospitals and realized a majority of the hospitals within our region delete their data after 2 weeks, others within the first week. Also, when you want to talk to hospitals about data, there's a lot of grayness in terms of, can we provide this very sensitive data to you? There's no actual legal framework that directs them on how to do that. We do have regulations, but even then they cannot comprehend what exactly they're supposed to do with regards to that data. So for us as a company, we realized even the actual data that we need to do, what we need to do is already problematic. So you approach different entities and you come up with different data sharing contracts, right? And then you have technicalities in how this is going to be implemented. They will approach a ton of hospitals and they tell us that we have to give them 50% of ownership of our company so that they can work with us and provide us with data for us to train. And even then, they have to use our resources for free. So this is some of the challenges that we're experiencing as we maneuver the market. When we leave Kenya to go to other areas of Africa to do our clinical validation, we encounter an entirely different beast. For instance, we went to Senegal. The way they approach AI, regardless of the fact that it has some omnipresence to it, is entirely different from our region. So once you move from one region to another, you have to travel through different routes for you to be able to set up your software and set up your processes in place. And then another challenge we have is the fact that within our region, our infrastructure is kind of legacy infrastructure, and nothing is communicating with anything. And also when you approach different hospitals in terms of the bureaucracy that we have within our regions, then that's another difficult conversation to have. So for ourselves as Neurolabs Africa and our aim to democratize access to healthcare using artificial intelligence, these are some of the challenges that we've experienced. And just on the surface level, with regards to how people treat AI, the perception that is coming from different areas, how the government has effectively also made it very difficult for us, because when you tell people this is how you treat data and this is how you go about sensitive data, then also there's that level of no one technically wants to interact with you as much because there's that fear, and there's also not much clarity on how they can go about doing business with you. So that's in general.
Wow, that's quite an experience. And that now brings me to Michael. Michael probably as a legal person, you know, she starts and then I'm quickly seeing the data protection laws and what they are doing to innovation within this space. And so the fact that that data is not being kept, then there is the questions around how it can be shared. And I'm trying to imagine all these hospitals wanting to be part of your company. So it's affecting even the ability to business contract. What advice would you recommend for AI companies, especially startups like Incurious, Neurolabs, that are trying to get into the space and to make a difference? Because for sure what she's proposing can work and it will help us significantly. You know, we recently, after the demonstrations, we had a lot of young people waiting for surgery with bullets lodged in their systems, because even the radiology machines and radiologists needed time to be able to redo the scan, then you have to wait to do the report, then the doctor, you know, so people are put in a barriers. The service can be delivered as fast as it should. What can we do to improve on this?
Thank you very much, Fiona. I think, especially in the field of medicine, the biggest opportunity that exists for data-driven innovation is with anonymized data. So for example, if, let's take government hospitals for example, and those are the majority of hospitals. If you can get a general data set about the average patient in a government hospital for every type of disease, you actually have been able to map the lay of the land in terms of diseases in Kenya. So imagine if, for example, Tharaka County where I come from, there's a hospital, and if the hospital had that record that says every month we receive X patients suffering from this kind of ailments, and X number of them are referred to X hospital, X number are treated locally, and you can drill down as much as you want to the data. But all that data is available minus any personally identifying information. It doesn't say who that patient is, their name. Maybe they might be from the county, but again, that's not evident. And imagine now if you scale that across to all government hospitals. So my point is this, as we are engaging with government in the formulation of an AI policy, open government data is something that you and all the people in this fraternity needs to be strongly advocating as part of this work. We've tried so hard, I think some work has been put in, but not enough. If we were able to get open government data from government institutions, from the government, the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics does collect data, but there are issues around the formats in which that data is availed. If I am a developer and I plug into a Kenyan national, what's the institution called? Statistics? Bureau of Statistics. If I plug into the National Bureau of Statistics website or portal, and I'm able to get data that feeds into my app, real-time data about the state of hospitals, how many hospitals in Kenya have cancer screening centers and all that. And you can imagine what that would mean, and not just cancer, but all other ailments and diseases, that is real-time, reliable, and able to be easy to validate. then imagine what that would mean in powering our data innovation ecosystem. So I think it's a small area, but the advice I would give is let's have a different approach to how we avail open, anonymized, secure data from government.
Thank you so much, Michael. And to move online to one of our other panelists online, Mr. Ben Roberts, who's representing the technology infrastructure community. Ben Roberts, if you can hear me, the question to you is, having listened to Mukiri's experience and the fact that she feels that the infrastructure we're using is legacy, what are the things that we can do as infrastructure service providers to make sure that we have up-to-date infrastructure? And that includes infrastructure right from the end user, divided in terms of hospital systems, the servers we deploy, the applications we deploy at the hospital systems, and then the infrastructure in between, to make sure that there is integration of the radiology infrastructure with the apps that are being developed and can be connected across, because I think some areas have very old systems that cannot go online. Today, technology has changed, everything can go online, we've got radiology machines that can go online. Are we encouraging this in any way? Ben? We are barely hearing you. You're very low. Just hold on, Ben. We're trying to get. Ben, we can't hear you. You're very faint. Just a minute. Hello, Ben, can you hear us? Okay, we can't hear you. I'll probably throw in another infrastructure honors, because there's several of them in the room. And so either a volunteer or I pick one. Stop looking down. Adam, can you respond to that question? What are the things that we need to do as infrastructure owners to make sure that we're giving sufficient support to those who are developing emerging technologies like AI to be able to sufficiently support the ecosystem? Have the mic. In the meantime, Ben, you can type the response and we can read it.
Thanks, Fiona. My name is Adam. I'm with Huawei. So we provide infrastructure for, I guess, those who run the internet services and data centers and cloud services. And we have our own Huawei cloud service as well. I think there's different ways of answering this question, because in some aspect, AI doesn't necessarily need amazing infrastructure per se. Right? If you're just getting data, whether it's IoT data, or which could be tiny bits of small data that you can collect slowly, or it could just be data that would come out of a hospital and you can collect. It doesn't have to be real-time data per se, if you get access to it. And when the processing of data happens, it can happen vertically in the cloud. It doesn't have to happen in real time per se. Right? You can send data off, it gets processed, and you can get it back in a sense. So I think we have to also understand and then develop solutions that are adapted to the reality of where we are in infrastructure. So as much as it would be ideal that everyone has, 1 Gbps high-speed fiber, or 200 Mbps unlimited data bundles on 5G all day long on all their devices. That may not be a reality for most of the country. As much as we may want to strive towards getting there at some point, I think we also have to, at the same hand, say business develop solutions, and I'm sure those who have AI solutions here can attest to that, that can work without such ridiculously large demands of bandwidth that may be out there in order for us to realistically move forward. Of course, we should still aim for more infrastructure over time, but I think that's also the reality of where we are, and we have to adapt to that. Also, of course, that provides a huge cost constraint. If you're required to have very, very high bandwidth, that is a very high cost. That then makes AI facilities and functions out of reach of other people as well, whether it's SMEs or other businesses or other individuals. Of course, I'm a big fan of high-speed infrastructure. That's our business. So I'm not saying you shouldn't need it per se, but I think we just have to also adapt to that reality. When we talk about infrastructure, I think one of the challenges that Kenya has is a lot of the network stability issues. You know, we've talked a lot in TESPOC about having fiber that's now increasingly across the country. We have problems with the lack of redundancy along many routes, and we have major issues with fiber cuts. We have issues of power cuts that affects the stability and ability to run fiber services over fiber. Normally, ironically, mobile services, of course they also have fiber often in the backhaul, can be more stable than fiber because they often have solar power or batteries or generators at mobile sites, because you may not have that on the various fiber equipment across the country. But mobile is still dependent on fiber as well. I think the other challenge, and this is where I guess the government's certainly going in the right direction about trying to expand fiber across the country, especially to, I guess, every ward level, so you can get more government data, healthcare data, education data, and so on. I guess there's been progress, but it's not been as fast maybe as we'd like to see. So I think that there is a need for that, and I guess one of the other benefits of fiber is that you have very low latency, and you're not thinking about data bundles per se, right? It's the idea of changing a mindset in Kenya from bundles to unlimited. I think now, you know, both Safaricom and Airtel offer very reasonable unlimited packages on 5G and also on 4G for home or business internet. And I don't know if people's mindset have quite switched yet. It seems to be taking some time for people to switch to, oh yeah, we can just buy unlimited. I think it's between 4,000 to 7,000 shillings per month on Airtel or Safaricom mobile, as well as on fiber. It's similar pricing, I think, for the entry-level packages. It's not that expensive, actually. Unlimited, you forget about worrying about data bundles. But I think that's been one of the problems of people in Kenya are still quite obsessed with data bundles, and we have to try and somehow change their mindset. Now the pricing is coming down, hopefully that can happen. So I don't know if that's helpful for you.
Yes, it is, and that raises another question. And maybe for this, I'm going to ask Alfred Ongare, if you can just join us. Adam, you'll sit there for the time being. Since you volunteered, please come and take a seat. And so I'll bring in Alfred into this conversation. When he was giving his remarks, one of the things that you talked about was AI in agriculture as well. And my question to you is, are you having the same challenges Mukiri is having? I see the same challenges, even in, say, for AI for within the agricultural sector. Ben Roberts, has the sound improved? Ben? No, it's even worse. Okay, so while waiting for Ben, please, Alfred, you go there because I need my panel seats filled. I knew I was going to fill them somehow. I'm just yet to figure out. So are the challenges that Mukiri is experiencing in the health sector similar to those in other sectors like agriculture and education?
I would say not quite. I'd say these are outliers sort of problems. Most of the time, depending on the scale of application that you're sort of engaging in. So, like for the example of Lima Labs, they work with greenhouses. They set up sensors. So from the get-go, they already understand the infrastructure costs that they have to incur in order to collect the data, package it, create a very strong value proposition, and then sell that data to farmers or other providers in the agriculture value chain. So I'd say these are unique problems, but there are different approaches of going about it. I would say one personal experience I've had, there was a time I was working on a refugee startup, and we had to collect data from refugees. But in order to approach the official refugee organizations, we needed to show that you have an authorization from the government, which is NACOSTI, that gives you the power to sort of conduct research and interview refugees. So it was just a process of applying for the authorization from NACOSTI, and that was that enabled us to approach different organizations and have an easier conversation. So I think that approach can also help when dealing with healthcare practitioners. Yeah.
Interesting. So then, moving on, it raises questions, because everything that has been said so far is raising issues around capacity building. Ray, you are young, you're still building your skills. Do you think enough is being done to build the right capacity to make sure, for starters, that people understand what emerging technologies can do and are training for the future? And when procurement happens, because when it comes to some of the things in the health space, it has to do with the right procurement, and you can only buy the right thing when you know what the right thing is supposed to be, when you have the capacity and understanding of what you need to be buying. Otherwise, it's very easy for us to be dumping ground for second-hand equipment that is already end of life in the regions it has come in from. Are we doing enough on building capacity amongst the youth?
Okay. Thank you for that question, first of all. I'm Ray Allen, and I'm a project manager for blockchain projects, mostly manage a couple of blockchain development devs. And I've interacted with lots of AI developers as well. And I must say, first of all, AI is a thing for the youth. The youth use it mostly, especially the generative models, but there are a few concerns about using AI. For instance, I talk of the way the models are being trained. In the long run, the company that has the most data about the youth in the entire globe, let me say globally, the company that has the most data will be able to train the most effective machines. And if the data is censored as data is right now, it means that there will be a level of bias that might emerge out of that. So in terms of education, I can say AI has made it easy for people to learn about things, but also in the process of learning about things through AI and through feeding it more information, because I'd prompt a GPT that I'd like to learn about this. And then from that, the GPT can collect the information that people from this location like to learn about this, they like to learn about this. That might lead to a sense of control in the future. Yeah, there have been several issues that have been addressed about AI training. That's something that I think it's my major concern, mostly the way they're being trained. Yeah, that's my major concern, because if a centralized system is what's training the AI models, all this information, what are they going to do with it? If they have all that information about it, they're learning from it, yes, but what is it getting from you? And can they build even bigger machines that might be more scary? Even in terms of military, think of it in terms of military. They know how you think, they know how the kind of questions you're likely to ask, and they know how they can engage you based on that. Yeah.
That takes me to Florence. When you listen to Ray, you begin to think about, so what are my rights in as far as a real life person in as far as AI is concerned? If AI is getting all this data about me and being able to analyze and use it, and sometimes there can be misinformation in the process because of the controls we've put in place on censoring certain data. How then do we, and Michael, I'll come to you after Florence on a legal aspect of that, but from a human rights point of view, how do we ensure that AI is working then for our good?
To answer that question, I would contextualize it in terms of looking at artificial intelligence from a human rights perspective, so to speak. So we have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, provides for varied rights, social, cultural, political, economic rights. Then, if you bring it back to a regional perspective, you have the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. Gives you similar rights, then gives a bit of more nuance to a couple of more rights within the African region. Then, bring it back home, we have the Constitution of Kenya, which has the Bill of Rights. So that those particular rights are provided for that cover holistically how one's life is to run, from your social cultural, which involves your interaction with people, how you interact with the government, how you interact with each other, rights to things like education, health, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. You have your political rights, again, which goes to freedom of expression, your participation as a human being in your political systems and your democracies. Then you have your cultural, which relates to how you associate with elements of religion, maintenance of your own cultural practices, etc. So all those compounded, you also find them in the Bill of Rights. So elements of how artificial intelligence also applies to our daily lives is the same way, is the same perspective in which one would give it and how they look at the Bill of Rights, or rather looking at artificial intelligence and how it affects those existing rights that you have that are accrued to you. So looking at it from a perspective of what you've mentioned,
the term that has vanished, I'm sorry. It's the term that has gone away. Sorry, but it relates to the freedom of expression and your ability to be able to speak, and the censorship that you've just spoken about, and elements of misinformation and that come in with respect to that. So you find that especially right now with the freedom of expression, if you look at it from a social media perspective, to be more precise, you find that with content creation and the use of algorithms for platforms, you find that there are elements of, I would say, slight bias that appear with different social media platforms depending on what content goes out there. And it also depends on what the political climate of that particular region is and how the platform is being used, the social media platform is being used in that context or that element. So you find that there is elements of algorithmic censorship with respect to content that is easily available to you in one region as opposed to the other. So then that gives you an element of looking at how does artificial intelligence now come and interfere with your freedom of expression. You look at it in terms of also how does artificial intelligence interfere with maybe, let's say, your right to health, as she sort of just mentioned. If, for example, AI is being leveraged for automated decision making in terms of how you receive health services, in terms of your access to those particular health services, depending on how it has been leveraged within different platforms, how is the data being used within those systems, or how has the algorithm been trained to give certain information to specific people, or how do elements of bias sort of come out with respect to that? So looking at it holistically in that perspective, and then now going back to looking at existing international instruments such as the OECD principles on the ethics of AI, looking at the UNESCO recommendations on the ethics of AI, you notice that most of these principles and most of these guidelines that have been given are given to the extent to look at a more human rights approach to it, bringing in elements of principles of responsibility, accountability, fairness, which also go, which if you look at holistically, also go back into looking at what is provided under your general human rights. So looking at just the general interplay of how artificial intelligence actually impacts or is already impacting your already existing rights.
Okay, thank you. Ben Roberts, I believe you're now sorted. Hello, Ben.
There is no sound coming from our end. Okay. You're not using headphones, so you should remove the headphones. Oh, okay, we have. Okay, fine. So what's happening? Okay, we seem to be unable to sort out the sound issue completely. We will move on the conversation. We've got a few more minutes and then we can open the floor for open remarks from everybody. So I come back to you, Michael. Based on the comments from Ray and from Florence, still all of this is around what Mukiri shared as her experience and what Alfred has added into. How do we, what are there any proposals you can think of that would legally or from a regulatory perspective address the concerns of how AI is implemented and the things that happen around it?
Yeah, thanks, Fiona. I think definitely there are serious concerns about first of all, the risk that AI, like many other technologies, might be put to harmful use. Someone famously said that there are two things that don't have limits: human intelligence and human stupidity. And history is littered with many examples of how, as humans, we have misused technology for our own harm and for the harm of others. The risk of harm, the risk of bias in the systems, and the risk of unequitable access to technology. I think the solution is that we need to have strong ethical frameworks, definitely. And at Google, we have been one of the first companies that have said very strongly that AI is too important not to regulate, and it's too important not to regulate well. So that's a statement that we need government to play a role in guiding the process of coming up with robust guardrails for AI. Already industries have led. Google has been one of the first companies that came up with AI principles. But it's government's role to govern and set such kind of framework. So I think it is for government and working with stakeholders to come up with ethical guidelines on what uses AI will be put to and what uses it will be put to, and that will be form the framework. On one last comment on digital skills you mentioned, I think if we need to ask ourselves, what intelligence developed artificial intelligence? It is human intelligence. And therefore, how do we as Kenya cultivate the kind of human intelligence that comes up with innovations like AI? And the answer you'll find in things like critical thinking, teaching creativity and innovation, and teamwork, some of the things that at least I learned a lot in my schooling days. So the question is, to what extent is that being taught in technologies?
Thank you, Michael. Now, a question to Mukiri, and in Kenya, particularly in Kenya, where are we in terms of ethics? Because, like Michael says, it boils down to our ethics. Our ethics are based on the values we hold as a society. What is our value system? Because in computing, first lesson of computing, computers 101, garbage in, garbage out. If you put in garbage, you'll just get the same garbage out. The system, the computer gives you exactly what you put in. That said and done, to what extent are we bringing that value system into our technology platforms? And more so,
how are we making sure that our African value systems are captured in the machine learning processes? Because if we don't do that, we'll continue complaining, oh, AI cannot give you a picture of a black doctor treating a white person. But where is that improvement going to come from if we are not putting that data into the system? So we'll start with the Lady Mkiri, then we'll come to you, Alfred. And you can also use the opportunity to raise it, so your hand goes up to raise an issue.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
The cost of the value system, to be very honest, I think,
Mike,
is it on? All right, the value system, I'll be very honest here. As a people and as Kenyans, I think we're very shaky on our values. I think also the reflection of what we have in terms of leadership reflects, because it's a sampling process. So we do have a great challenge of how we ourselves conduct ourselves morally and ethically, and that's a serious problem. But what I find in terms of now the products that we're building, one of the things I've quickly noticed is that it's very difficult for you to have an Afrocentric product or even an international product without adopting a set of values and within your culture as a company and how you do things. For instance, for us, we quickly realized we have to get some approvals from FDA, from European Union, and very quickly we had to align the way we do our code, the way we do our practices as a company, how we manage our data, and how we ensure that there's that, the anonymization, ensuring things are encrypted, etc. So we quickly realized we have to align ourselves, not just with the understanding that we had coming in as engineers, but also to understand what business entails, what diplomacy entails, and all of these are the things that are very critical in running a business, and not necessarily just a startup, but a successful business. So in terms of also bringing in the African element, that's the one thing we've also noticed as we move across the region to realize that a majority of people are averse to technology, maybe making health decisions for them, etc. But I think if you're Afrocentric, and there's a gentleman here who really pushes this, we need to build products that touch on us as Africans so that we can input the local context and customize them to us. Which means we also capture the nuance of Africans, we capture how we behave and what is acceptable, and also do the civic education of telling people, by the way, you can have AI assist you in XYZ. Case in point, we were initially radiology competitive, but now we are assistive radiologists. So that is that. And to the question I have for the gentleman was on the velocity. How essentially do we regulate something that is moving faster than the speed of light? Because then you find that you have a regulation that quickly becomes redundant. And then also, why is it that when it comes to AI, we want to regulate it as canvas? It's a technology. Statistics, algorithms. How come when it comes to, for instance, blockchain, people will regulate products within their regions? For instance, within the capital markets, they'll say this is security, this is not. Why is it when it comes to AI, we want to regulate it as canvas, and it is a technology, as blockchain is a technology? What perspective do we need to employ here? Yes.
Okay, we'll quickly move to Alfred first, then we'll come to Michael to respond to your question.
I would say at AI Kenya we have a mantra that I keep encouraging our members to uphold, which is show me the data or create it. So thanks to open source, we have access to so many models, whether it is computer vision or large language models, that provide a very good framework where if you want to integrate your African values, you can do that. And in any case, if you encounter a case where the data that you're seeking is not represented in a data set that you find online, then the challenge to you as a person is, if you don't find it, you're supposed to create it. Because if we continue the culture of I'm trying to find a data set of 1,080-year-old Kenyan ladies and I can't find it online, you need to take that initiative and go and create the data set yourself and then share it out so that other people can also build up upon it. So in terms of the value system and representation, I'd say the power is in our hands, and we need to stop the narrative of we are not finding African representation in these AI models. We need to do it ourselves.
Interesting. Ray, you have got something to ask or add?
Please.
Okay, I have a few concerns I'd like to address to you about AI. So, I think it was someone from Microsoft who said code will go away. And currently, we understand the state in our country. Most youths who finished schooling in, okay, let me say somewhere in the late 2010s and maybe in the early 2020s, before today, they used to do things around online writing, but then they've since lost their opportunities to work with people online because AI is replacing them. Yeah, those people would rather use AI modules to do that. And then after that, they decided to shift into coding. A lot of my friends are coding, but then you realize that with the dawn of GPT models, GPT-4 models, yeah, they can code better than people can. And even when it comes to debugging codes, they can do it better. So it's raising a concern, like, what is their future like in terms of jobs? What's their future? Yeah, and other than that, I'd also like to talk about, in as much as they're using GPT models to code or for any activities, AI agents are leveraged as assistants by most people today. But in as much as they're using them, we realize that in professional setups, if you present your work having been done by AI or having been assisted by AI in some way, then your work will be considered null and void because you've used AI. Yeah, and so this takes away some of the things. You know, for you to get that output that you got from AI, you must have presented it with your prompts. So they don't consider that creativity. So there are a few things I'm addressing in that line. So, like, if you prompt AI to give you a response, why don't they consider that like creativity? And why don't they consider that your work? Because you're the one who came with the prompts written the way you decided to put them. But then they'll say that's not your work. Yeah. So even if it's assignments you're submitting, or even if it's work that you're supposed to submit, then you ended up submitting them after using AI, they'll consider these not valid because you used lots of it in it. Even in terms of coding, if you submit a code that was done by AI, they consider that null and void. Even when you're doing technical tests for people who are interested in, maybe if you're trying to get a job as a software engineer and then you decided to use AI to run your code, they'll consider that null and void. So what's the future looking like? And then the second thing I'd like to talk about, I was reading an article recently about an AI robot that committed suicide. Yes, it committed suicide. I know. So you're asking, the question becomes, what if they actually inherit our inefficiencies, or human beings have breaking points, which means that if AI modules are going to learn from us, they're going to learn the breaking points too, which means at some point we might have these AI modules being ineffective.
I like the way you ask two questions that really contradict each other in terms of what you say, but starting off with the first one, where you are asking about the future of AI. Probably I'll ask Alfred to respond to that, and then I'll ask Kiri to respond to the second question on machine learning and what the machines speak. So Alfred.
I would say on the use of AI and it being termed null and void in different areas. So I'm sure everyone here has used ChatGPT in their daily work from one point or another. And at some point it's very hard to know whether someone has used it or not unless they disclose. So I would say in the case of education systems, they'll eventually have to adapt, right? In our times, of course, we were doing a lot of online research when we were doing our projects, but the inefficiency in that is you had to read many articles before you could come up with different points that you want to present. But that has been shortened right now to merely 30 seconds, which allows you more time to do other things. So the fight from the lecturers and professors will eventually have to go down, because even them, they will realize at some point you are barely able to detect whether an article has been written by an AI system or a human. Another thing is, most of the AIs we're encountering right now, they're purely weak AI. So we have weak AI and strong AI. Weak AI does very specific tasks, one task in a very good way, and then strong AI is like AGI, where it can do thinking, it can do sensing, it can do most of the tasks that a human can do as one system. We are not yet there. We are getting closer to that. However, in terms of that affecting jobs, and especially the example of coding, up to now, we still don't have very 100% efficient systems that can purely write code that does not have any bugs. Yes, they are able to generate some code for you, but most of them still have bugs. So the initiative is to you as the person who is prompting the system for it to write code. You still need to have that knowledge to look at the code and tell that this code is bug-free and it is working well. So we are not yet in that position where we will experience massive layoffs of different professions when it comes to tasks like coding. If that was the case at this day and age, I think all 90% of the software engineers at Google, Microsoft, OpenAI would have been fired. But that's not the case. We are still employing software engineers, we are still employing researchers to improve these systems. On the matter of the AI committing suicide, I have a very big problem with journalists who, at the sake of clickbait and getting their articles read, they will read a scientific journal and, of course, give it a headline that will get most people to of course, click on it and read on it. So sometimes you really need to look at the fine print, look at the scientific paper to really decide whether that particular thing happened. I can tell you, I don't think there's any system right now that can commit suicide. For you to commit suicide, you need to have life. But if it's in the case of a gaming system, then you can argue that out. So I'd say it's really upon us to really consume information more critically and sort of question the facts that are being laid out before us, and then also, of course, continue participating in such discussions and training so that you individually as a person, you have all the facts right in terms of first principles, and you're able to argue out a point that is brought out to you. So I would say, don't worry so much. We are not in a bad state. We are good.
Okay. I think Kiri would like to add something to that.
Yes, actually, to add on to the point, I think there's a need for people to understand the mathematical underpinnings of everything that we do and the guidelines that are provided by the people building the systems. But I also want Michael to chip in because he can answer the question on the existentialism part and also the breaking point. He's extremely philosophical and a great AI engineer. So
we're going to get to the open floor in a few.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to give Ben Roberts one more. I'm told he's right now able to. So Ben.
Give a thumbs up if you can hear me. There's an echo now.
Yes.
Okay, is the echo gone? Alright, okay. Let's try this. I'm only in Mombasa and we're having vast technological problems with our infrastructure. But we have made, very big investments have been made in ICT infrastructure in general over the last 20 years. And what has really spurred that investment, from a government point of view, was government basically deregulating the market. Actually, you know, okay, with licenses, but we were in a situation where nobody was allowed to build communications ICT infrastructure. Only one company, Telcom, was originally able to do that. The government has opened up the space by opening up for different players to get licenses, different types of licenses, mobile licenses, ISP licenses, and really, you know, made it accessible for people to set up and build, invest into ICT infrastructure of all kinds. So we've had, you know, people building mobile networks, people building data centers, people building local cloud instances, people coming in, international companies coming in and investing as well. And so this has been going on in a very big way. The government also made strategic investments in some of these things as well, of its own money, building subsea cables, participating in, you know, public-private partnerships to build subsea cables. So the government took a role of opening up the sector and making strategic investments in the sector as well. This has spurred all this big investment. And all is not lost, because the investment that's been made in connectivity in general, in data centers and cloud and other things, this is all the basis for AI, for artificial intelligence. But really, you know, if we are going to, hang on a second, I need to tell someone to stop making noise. Sorry, there was someone here who was cleaning the house, and I had to ask them to stop making so much noise. But anyway, if we're going to capitalize on artificial intelligence in Kenya, then we're going to have to make more investments, and that is going to be investment in infrastructure. You know, and that's going to be more computing, potentially more cloud computing. We have companies coming and are talking of putting cloud computing nodes into Kenya, and we have already edge nodes from the likes of Huawei, Microsoft, Amazon. But we're seeing you know, other companies, or the same companies coming and talking, putting larger cloud instances, which will enable us to do more development and research and development on AI. We also need to invest very heavily in skills. So a lot is going on in that space as well. But you know, if we're going to capitalize, it's not just going to come to us naturally. We're going to have to invest. Even if it's foreign companies who are coming with AI products like Google, they're still going to have to invest in the local market to sell those products and capitalize those products in Kenya. So investment is required. Now, all this talk of regulation, AI and robotics bill, ICT authority bill, all these things that are talking of, you know, licensing, restricting practitioners, saying who can and can't use this technology. This is the opposite of policy which is going to spur investment. This is talking of closing the market, not opening the market. It is restricting who can take part in technology. Now, if you're a company who's thinking of investing in AI of any kind, whether it's to build data centers for AI, whether it's to come and market your products in Kenya, this will make you afraid of investing. Because you think, well, I'm going to put all this money and invest, and I'm going to get a 5-year return or a 10-year return on this investment. But hey, the government's talking, or somebody is talking about closing this thing down. Look what's been done with drones, and the way the government has basically, you know, over-licensed the drone. You need a 5-year pilot license course to fly a children's toy, you know, in Kenya. You know, this is basically killed off a great technology of drones, which could be used a lot. It's just making it much harder and more, you know, less accessible to use. So, you know, what government needs to do in this space is make for policies which are going to encourage investment, and also look for, you know, good investments that the government can make to spur this along. They have been doing good progress from a government point of view, and you know, we're seeing a lot of talk from the president about Ruby Energy and all these, you know, green data centers that we're talking about. These are good things for you know, development of AI infrastructure. But you know, really, that's all I really wanted to say, is that, you know, when we talk of policies, you know, yes, we might have particular things that crop up that may need problems arising, that may need the technology itself may need regulating. But we don't need to regulate the people that have licenses and all these things to stop people even taking part in doing this. So we, and then the more time we spend wasting debating, a bill from somebody who wants to close down, an individual who wants to close down the AI market to corner it for themselves, the more air we spend wasting talking about that, this is chatter and noise which prevents investors of thinking of coming to Kenya and doing AI technologies in the country.
Thank you. Thank you. I just have a follow-up question for you. Are you saying that today it is not possible for us to have AI-driven drones, flown drones, because of the need of a 5-year pilot's license? So that then...
Drone technology has a lot of potential, but the regulations around drones have made it overly restrictive as to who can even fly a drone, who can even bring a drone in the country. Even importing a drone, you need to prove you've got a license for the thing before you can even bring it into the country. It's overly onerous, and it's an example of how over-regulation kills the technology and makes it that people don't want to, come and invest. We could be having much more people doing things with drones if the government wasn't making it quite so hard. And I think we're in danger of doing the same. That's the point, right?
Thank you.
At the moment you don't need a license for building a data center. So, data center, anybody can come and build a data center. It's not something you require a license for. But some months or a couple of years ago, there was some workshop in Naivasha. Somebody talked about having a licensing framework for data centers. This came up from a government regulator or something, and then it was sometime last year. We were trying to secure a large investment coming into to the companies and debt financing to build data centers, and this was delayed by weeks and weeks and weeks. So we had to get a lawyer to give an opinion that you didn't need a license for data centers. The mere fact that there's uncertainty in regulation potentially coming down the line makes investors think about, hey, well, do I want to lend money to this company to build data centers if we don't know whether you might need a license at the moment? So if we're going to regulate something, best to get on with it. But the more talk and chatter we have, which makes it seem like you are going to lock down the technology, and the longer it takes, it delays the investment, and people will go and invest somewhere else. Like there are other countries in the world where you can go and invest in artificial intelligence. So investors who want to come with money, Kenyans or international companies who want to invest in this will either, they'll go somewhere else, is what I'm saying. Capital will go away, the skills and talent will go away.
Thank you so much for that, Ben. Now, back to our conversation. So I'd like to just open up the floor, if you can allow us to. And let us see what comes through. And I would like each of you to just respond to issues relating to the area that you represent. Though I still have a question that is still lingering, that hasn't quite been answered. In terms of capacity building and skills development, I know that sitting here is private sector. But for us to be able to work well in our investments, we need to interact with government institutions. And maybe there is where we are dropping the ball quite a bit. How do we support our government institutions so that they are moving with us? So that the technology, because I think within government there's a tendency to wait until there is a policy. What does the policy say? Then people act. If that policy is not there, then that means procurement cannot happen correctly, and it affects, therefore, then the ability to be able to just get the right infrastructure, which is foundational, onto the ground. How do we bridge that gap within government? That is just going to, and throw it then, leave it pending. But I would just like to open the floor for comments. I want to move into our open comment section so that then we can have responses and questions and everything coming back. And I'll start with Michael, who had been nominated to comment on something. Yes, at the end. Yeah, thank you. Then Samuel, check for us online for any comments and enable the speakers.
Thank you. My name is Michael Mission. So on the issue of the AI and existential crises, AI, I think one of the challenges we face is we already believe at the AI stage, but we're still at machine learning. And we have, as Alfred mentioned, the media to thank for this, as well as companies that made an investment. So why we're at the machine learning stage is AI in itself, as much as we say, is in simplest definition, simulation of human intelligence. Intelligence philosophically requires knowledge. AI, whatever we're using now as machine learning models, lack intelligence, or they lack the theory of knowledge, which is epistemology, meaning they don't know what they don't know, neither do they know what they know. And it's all a series of computations. It's very well calculated guesses. If you look at large language models, it's just computing the next available word within a series. So using those weights to do some of the best guessing we never do. The model may never understand. And if you look, for example, like ChatGPT 4.0, the level of data that it was trained on is equivalent to what they said a fourth grader would consume in terms of learning. And you can imagine how repetitive that data on the internet was, and it could only get to that level of learning. So that again shows, even with all that data, you really can't speak about existential crises. And AI will not kill itself. It lacks consciousness. You can debate maybe chairs have consciousness, those are other philosophical topics. Then I have to add one other comment on the ethics portion. I think it's a waste of time. How many of you are constitutionalists? Do you believe that ethics are guided by the results of your actions? How many of you are virtue-based? How many of you are deterministic? There are very many principles of ethics within just humanity itself. We have settled on one, even as individuals, even in a group in this room. How do we start now dictating AI ethics? A lot of what happens in AI, when we talk about ethics, is always the trolley problem. Now we say there's a train, and then you have to go to get someone, and you have a choice to pull the lever or not to pull the lever. Research has shown within philosophy that it doesn't really matter. The trolley problem only exists if you're in that situation. Outside that situation, the answer you're giving is not valid. But once in that situation, then a risk comes, well, the trolley problem exists. And most people choose to do nothing because they'd rather not be responsible for having making a decision. So do we then make AI irresponsible? Well, not irresponsible, but do we make AI to behave in the same way that it can't decide? We usually find human in the loop on and off in terms of decision making for artificial intelligence a bit absurd. We spend all that work building smart, but very good guessing machines, very good generative machines, and then you have to give it to someone to review the output and decide whether the output is right or wrong. Yet it always outperforms you. So I think it's that trolley problem that we face. I think the theory of knowledge, also the epistemology is an issue. But when we say artificial intelligence, I think for now, because we're not yet there, we're talking about AGI, OpenAI is talking about AGI. I think that was just very good sales and marketing, because all we're doing is we're just doing statistics and calculus in the market. We will not see AI create from nothing in itself, show an understanding of what it knows or what it doesn't know. When you write something on ChatGPT, it tells you can't do that. That's not, that response is actually written into it, part of the hard code where it has guardrails on. You can say this, when you get this prompt, avoid this, avoid that, avoid this. It doesn't, it's just looking at a set of instructions.
Thank you so much, Michael. But I think the issue of ethics was coming down to, as a country, what is our value system? It was not on ethics, what ethics are we tying into AI per se. Because as a country, countries have got value systems. And when you look at the Scandinavian countries, I'll take that as an example, their value system is such that even when a leader has erred, whether it was intentional or not, they just resign.
There is never hula baloo and all these things we are seeing in Africa. You get where I'm coming from. It wasn't that value system, that ethical system, that system must be taught into the algorithm for AI. But you find that with time, it just happens. We just begin to make sure that this maths in such a way that when this is happening, the result should be this, and if it is not this, then this is what the machine is told, this is what next should be the options, right? Why? Because we have a value system that we stand for. And we need to make sure that that value system can be ingrained in our society. You'll allow me, forgive me, but you'll allow me to use this scenario. Those who went to school during Moi's era, raise your hands. During that time, you got free milk. You got free milk. And why were we getting free milk? Because we were meant to feel that our health was important. The value for health was considered to be important, though I don't think maybe we're not so many, so the NHIF system, the health system, was not so strained, and you'd go to hospital and you get proper treatment. Life was good and easy, right? Because of, and all those things, now that president was so clever, he took all those things and tied them into something he called the Nyayo philosophy, which we learned in school, right? In civics, we were taught the Nyayo philosophy of peace, love, and unity. That became our value system, somehow. We learned that we needed to be peaceful people, we needed to show love and care, and all these things, and let to be peaceful. And we didn't even realize when our democratic rights were strained, controlled, because we were peaceful, we were loving people, we were united. You get? So it's really around that philosophy that we sort of managed to come together. After that, there hasn't been something that the other generations have had to propel them forward. And hence now, that also gives a lot of strength and muscle to the ongoing Gen Z move and drive. A drive for transparency, a drive for accountability. But they are coming in a united front. And you can still see those principles of love and unity and all that in them, right? So they never disappeared. We just need, as a country, to come to a point where we are able to speak up and say, Kenyans, this is what we stand for. And somehow, you'll find today, even today as we are coding and doing all those things, in a very subtle and silent way, what we value ends up being captured in the machines and the way we do the algorithms. Because there has to be if this happens, then this is the response, right? That ability to write that code that way is determined by some level of some standards. Social, ethical, moral standards. And bearing that in mind, it is then important that we are able to recognize what are these and develop that culture and let it be what drives. You get what moves us forward. If when that becomes our way of living, then we are able to see the impact, even in our governance, our leadership, and all these things. It doesn't become an issue. But the floor is now open to you guys, so I don't want to just take up too much of their time. Michael, that conversation, we shall pick it up off the mic. Let others also just have a chance to share their views.
Hi everybody, my name is Lilian Mbabazi. I work with NTT Data. I just wanted to maybe comment on your unanswered question. I might not be able to answer it, but comment about it with the, what do we do to make sure that the government is moving with us or at the same pace. And I was just thinking, we need to stop looking at our government as that group of laggards over there who will sit and come up with policies while we're ready to move and we have a plan, but we cannot move because we're waiting for them to, come up with the policies and frameworks that we need to be able to move. the government needs to move at the speed that all of us are moving. So that means we need to work together. We're here representing institutions, in various sectors. We need to be with government representatives in these rooms, making the policies, making the frameworks together. Everybody represented so that we're moving at the same pace, because it doesn't make sense for us to sit here and discuss and come up with all the plans and strategies that we need, and then wait for the government over there to adopt in a couple of years to come when the world has moved on. So I think speed will be very, very important. Who is government? It's us, it's the citizens, it's the people, the leaders that are in our government offices, from the rest of us. We went to the same institutions, we probably are friends. So let's not separate government from the rest of the world or the country. That's my suggestion.
Thank you. So my name is Christopher Well. I also work for Entity Data. I just had a few comments to just run through quickly. So there was, I think there was one of the speakers that mentioned something around our infrastructure and whether it's actually ready for like AI applications and what's ailing it. So part of our business is actually the connectivity side of the business. And we've actually been having interactions with like our field personnel around, for instance, where there are so many cable cuts. And literally the feedback they get from contractors is they are told if you find electricity, stop. If you find water, stop, road, stop. But if you find fiber cut, they'll come and fix it. So we need to get to a point where we actually realize that the ICT infra is actually as important, if not even more important than other infra, and is actually mission critical because we have organizations using this ICT infra to actually run mission critical activities. So we actually need to. So that is one aspect that I think should be regulated. We definitely need regulation around that, making sure that we put ICT infrastructure at the same level as other physical infrastructure. There was a question around knowledge gap and how do we get to that level where we're using it. So I see data a lot with the older organizations, older members of the community, and particularly government organizations where you walk in and be pitching AI, and they will tell you confidently we don't use AI, you're not allowed. Meanwhile, they're posting photos and onto all manner of social media sites and using filters, and they're saying we don't use AI, we can't use it. So I think it's an issue of more education, more awareness around it, what it actually is, and we can't get away from it. Even within our organizations, we literally have a stream around how do we make use of AI, because you can't hide away from it. So for us, as far as we are concerned, it's practical applications. There's areas where we definitely, the technology is ready and the need is there, so that's where we should focus our ambitions, our activities on. Like someone, I think it's actually the MC that spoke, we actually need another AI to write poems, yeah? Yeah, so maybe the focus should be on where is the actual need and where is the technology actually available to do that, and that should be our focus on. That's also my common sense.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nikita. I am the co-founder at Betagram Health, where we also use AI-powered diagnostic assistance tools. So I am running into a problem similar to yours, where we're doing clinical validation here in Kenya, as well as elsewhere in the continent and in the West. But I find that in Kenya there's quite a bit of resistance. Even though we've got an ethical approval, even though we've tried engaging the doctors, the radiologists who will be using the tool, we find that they keep asking what regulatory approval we have. We are currently in the process of establishing that. So for me, it is important to engage the technocrats, the radiologists, and all other key informants in different fields as we have this conversation. So we engage the government, but also the people for whom we're building these solutions, so they don't feel alienated and afraid of what is being developed in these fields. Thank you.
So can you take
start responding, but the responses have to be short, like about a minute responses.
Good morning, everyone.
Can you respond to what has just been asked?
There's a question or comment again, which we agree with.
Yeah. Let me proceed. I just want to be sure that we are in agreement. If we are, if we are not, then we are.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Quincy. I work at Parliament, so I am part of government. I'm not here as an official representative. I'd say I teach people on air regulation, particularly within the committees within Parliament. It's a struggle. Quick comment. We ought to stop the conversation about over-regulation. I think from what I've read from authors even in this room, a lot of AI issues, especially ethical issues, can be addressed through amending current existing legislation. Because one major challenge we're having within Parliament, when as researchers and legal officers in there, we're asked to give fair comment and to try and look at existing legislation which can aid in making sure we don't go the dark side of AI, or as it's taunted, taking over the world. It's a tall order. I'll give a personal experience. I was in the CII committee at some point, and I had the sectorial comments on the artificial intelligence and robotics bill. I was appalled by the petition initially. And the challenge that I put to everyone is, when we ask for comments, we ask for public participation. Please come through and actually give us insights, because a lot of times I learn more from people, and then now when I try to relate to now the people in charge inside those particular rooms, they actually listen. For example, currently we are trying to find a way to amend the Data Protection Act to include regulating of algorithms. It's a brilliant piece of article I saw from the CPIT website. Then I took it personally to write upon it further. And now that it's a conversation within the halls of power, it's a great place to start. Let's not jump at, oh, we need regulation, we need this, we need this. The strategy is necessary. It's a good place to start. But we don't need an act as it stands. We have Intellectual Property Act, we have Data Protection Act, we have the Communications Authority regulations, which are there on transmission. We have institutions such as the Kenya National Innovation Agencies, which ought to be empowered instead of coming up with more grey areas by establishing more organizations. I know government is the chief employer, but as it stands right now, the clamor of the conversation is on the wage bill. So instead of creating more jobs that are also one-sided, we should empower the existing institutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Esteban?
Yes, my name is Boniface Opan. I represent Founders Hub Africa. And my question is on crafting the national strategy in preparation for coming up with the regulations. And when coming up with a strategy, you say that we also need to maybe have the national philosophy, something that guides us. But then my question is, by doing that, are we not trying to stifle, or not stifle, but limit the extent to which someone can innovate, which is, I think, something that we are even trying to run away from in this field.
Any responses to that? The other comments? Yes.
Okay, I'd love to comment on a few things. First of all, I don't know, we talked about ethics, and we were talking of ethics and contextualizing it from nations or individual locations.
Actually, I thought you were commenting on what they said.
Okay, I'm commenting on a couple of things. that like
in 1 minute.
Yeah. Okay, maybe more. So, in line with ethics, you know, today there's a lot of information dumping, and lots of things to do with ethics have been eroded with information online, and some of it is maybe change of perspectives that has been brought about by new ideologies, which means that if we're to create AI based on ethics, then we don't know what is right, what is wrong. Even countries are changing their ideologies based on what's on the internet. So that might affect that entirely in line with ethics. And then I also wanted to comment on education. Actually, to educate people about AI and any emerging technologies, we need to make them use it without them even knowing that they're using that technology that they're using. Like for instance, people are using, have been using Facebook. Do they know that they're using technology? They don't know. Yeah, like you find, right now you find our grandparents using Facebook. Some of them are getting on Instagram. They don't know they're using technology, but they're using it. So if we can teach people how to use AI without them knowing that they're using AI, I think that could be great. And then it lines with innovation and regulations, time limit. Okay, I comment on what you said about regulating. I don't know. I believe you mentioned something around regulating algorithms, which could be regulating code. So how do you do that, and why should you do that? Yeah, that's.
I'm going to try and use a minute, which is basically 16 seconds. Yes, I'm going to try and utilize that to sort of address his question and his question. Comments, not questions, comments. There's something you've mentioned when you were speaking about ethics and it being difficult to contextualize or define, and because also human beings, philosophically human beings struggle with ethics in itself, with defining ethics. There's something that Dr. Melissa, who is seated back there, always says. She always says that AI is a tool. It's a tool to be used by human beings, and it's not the other way around. So if we were to develop, if ethics are developed, there are ethics that exist, the OECD principles, UNESCO ethics, those principles which relate to ethics haven't been treated in a vacuum, I would say. Because if you look at, for example, let's take the principle of fairness. The principle of fairness emanates from the fact that there is notable issues of discrimination when using AI. There's notable issues of bias when using AI. So some of those ethical principles haven't necessarily been created in a vacuum, but have been created within the context of using AI as a tool. So that's the line in which the ethics are created. So it can be looked at from a developmental perspective, it might be looked at from a consumer perspective. So that's the line in which I think ethics, especially for technology, artificial intelligence, are created. To address yours on regulation and innovation and innovation stifling, it's been a perpetual argument that regulating technology, regulating AI will stifle innovation. However, you realize that to a certain extent, just based on how AI is being leveraged on a global perspective, there needs to be an element of regulation, because without it, that means we will have what we now call the killer bots that go haywire, non-regulated. You will have, again, issues of bias, discrimination popping up. And when those issues pop up, we are the same people who, even developers, we're the same people who will come back and say, this is harming us. So in considering both the benefits, the easiest way to answer it is consider both the benefits and the risks of AI, because technology doesn't come without risks. It comes with risks. So I would say regulation is intended to sort of address more of the risks, but not necessarily stifle innovation. You can create as much as you want, but a line is drawn where your innovation starts to harm a majority of people. That's how I would basically answer it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say 2 points. I think I agree with the gentleman from Parliament, who's not officially from Parliament, which is fine, and it's not on the record comments. I fully agree there's not necessarily a desire you have to create a new law per se, but I think there needs to be an agency who is currently, it could be an existing agency, who has the remit of identifying risks, opportunities, and where the gaps are, and then driving the resolution of those gaps, right? Are there gaps in liability, you know, if it's issues of cars driven by machines? It could even be at a port, you know. To be very honest, the first case of a driverless car in Kenya is not going to be on the road. It will be in a port, or a mine, or some private land, or even on a farm. And that's, yeah, and that's totally fine, because we recognize that roads don't have good street markings, for example, so you're not going to be having driverless cars based on photos of road markings, but they could work in a port or a farm. And if it runs over somebody, or even a goat, who's responsible, right, for killing that goat? It should be the owner of the machine. So my point being, are there current laws that addressing issues of liability in that case of a machine killing an animal or a person or whatever? And maybe the laws already cover that, and they don't. The same about data. People are training hours on data, and somebody worked hard to collect that data. Should they be rewarded for collecting that data? Like IP of data rather than IP of ideas. And the issues of explanation of things. If you're rejected for a loan, if you're rejected for a job, are you given the reason why? Whether it's made by a human or a machine should be irrelevant, right, in a sense. And I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if current laws address those issues, but I agree, those are the gaps somebody should be identifying, and then those existing laws should be improved. My last point, very quickly, was about the strategy. I think we need to be very clear what on priorities and prioritize. I don't think, as a country, Kenya should aim to do everything. You know, it shouldn't be, has to be world's best resources for infrastructure and computing and high skills and low skills and this and that, you know? We have to prioritize not just use cases, but where investment and resources need to go. We have to have a very realistic strategy, and that would be my recommendation, and make some decisions in this strategy rather than just wanting to do everything. Yeah, we'll have a great regulatory framework. Maybe we decide there will be no AI law, but we will have an entity that will go and review existing laws and update them. For example, it's made a decision not to create an AI law, but do this. Or we will invest 10% of GDP in AI research, or actually no, we won't, because we can't afford that, and currently we only have like 0.something% of research, GDP in general research anyway, so I think we have to make that decision. I don't think the country should go and invest tremendous resources in saying like computing resources per se, if that's going to sacrifice investment in maybe skills or other things that may be more important. I'm not saying what we should or shouldn't do, but we have to really make some decisions in having a strategy, otherwise I don't think the strategy is very useful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adam. And just to mention, there is a body that has a mandate of looking at the legal gaps. And I know Parliament uses them. As TESPOC, we've partnered with them, we use them. The Ministry of ICT has used them and continues to use them. The Kenya Law Reform Commission. And so the Kenya Law Reform has all the data, and they are able to tell you whether something can be a law in itself or can work with existing policies and how. The question is that many people don't interact with them, so no one writes to them to ask them these questions. However, if you do write to them, they're able to give you a brief of what laws exist to address these issues, and they can recommend on whether a law needs to be done or not. And I know that there is no law that ends up on the floor of the House, and you can correct me in Parliament. There is no law that the researchers will end up putting forward if you've not also gotten a report from Kenya Law Reform that identifies where the gaps are and whether this document is addressing existing legislation or is totally new, the things are not done. So they do that. Then they also keep track of all the comments they get on bills. They have a mandate to make sure that they keep track of that. If called upon and taken to court, they will produce. Michael, you were at that meeting. You signed, this is the attendance. You said, or you emailed us this, and this is how we handle it, and this could not fit in because of this. It is already an existing law. They keep track of that, and they keep all that information. So we have a body that does that, but probably people don't know about it. Yes?
Okay, I will speak from my perspective from the startups. We don't want to be regulated, to be very honest with you. We already have tons of regulations that we have to encounter. So you can imagine having an extra one that we have to pay a license fee for, and we're paying for all of these other things. It becomes a huge problem for us. But at the same time, we're aware of something the government typically does, which is soft regulation. We remember it with the crypto industry, where they say, buyer beware. And And then you find companies that are building, they cannot interact with the traditional infrastructure because there's this wide web. So you realize your business cannot do anything. So essentially, the challenge we have is this. What are you regulating, essentially? What is AI? Because we still don't have proper definitions of a majority of the things. We have features, we have filters, we have tools, we have products. What essentially are you regulating? If I have an extension that is AI-based, am I supposed to seek regulation for that? If I add on a filter, am I supposed to come and approach you for regulation? If I have a tool or anything, it doesn't make sense to ask to that extent because now we don't even understand how it's going to look like from that perspective. So in my thought, what I don't say works in the sense that there is an agency that will provide the risks and mitigation of the same. And also there's another challenge in terms of how we approach it. We get to a point where we cannot even export our own products as a country. So there's need for those international protocols because there's that element of AI being cross-jurisdictional when you move from here. So I think the approach that should be taken should essentially also be in the field of the people building, because then the challenges we will face as builders, most people will not actually identify, but the ones who know what we go through each and every single day when we build some of these things. And I think that from the bill that was proposed, there's an element of counties also providing legislation. So I have to approach the national government, and then I have to go to maybe Nakuru County, get another legislation, another license. To be fair, it's tedious and it's exhausting for builders, but it makes the environment very disenabling if there's such a thing. So if there's a way that can be put in place that touches on what we're doing, and also other players in the ecosystem, I think it would be the best approach, a strategy.
Actually, that proposal in the bill contradicts an existing law, so you don't need to worry about it because it's a very clear existing law that guides on the county engagement and how ICT service providers should be handled. What I would like us to be able to be cognizant of in terms of, like the people in the health sector seem to forget that there has to be co-regulation. Co-regulation means that the regulators of the two sectors you're working in, ICT and health, need to collaborate and need to work together. What we lack in this country, and maybe there is where Parliament can come in and help us, is that there's no policy that mandates entities to collaborate at the regulatory level. M-Pesa forced the finance regulator and the ICT regulator to work together. Why? The market was already taking it, and the market was not going to back down. They had no option. That is where everyone else is taking us in terms of health, agriculture, and all the sectors, mining, and everything that is using technology. As long as they're using technology and they end up using AI, we need and we must have co-regulation. And what I've seen has been a challenge over the last few years is that the regulators do not want to work together. So part of our strategy would be making sure that regulators understand that there has to be co-regulation, and if need be, we make sure within our policy development framework, our policy processes, because within there is a gap, and I know that the gap is within the Ministry of Coordination of National Government or where that policy should sit, but there is no policy that mandates for collaboration of regulators, what we call co-regulation. When there is co-regulation, the regulators are able to see that these entities that are doing this because they are ICT and they are doing this, then you give them this and you get a license that allows you to operate freely. If CBK never gave in to Safaricom, the M-Pesa would not be what it is today. If they were as rigid as they were with the banks, wouldn't have M-Pesa, it would have been dead. But because they have no option to turn that way, we have to make sure that all the innovations coming out, as they're using different technology for different sectors, regulators of the different sectors must, the word is must, there is no option, must be willing to collaborate. And I say must with a lot of authority because 2018, 2019, I was training regulators of other parts of the world in Washington, DC on co-regulation. And we looked at case study of the water sector and ICT, energy sector and ICT. We went through a lot of material given that we had developed with the Boston Collaborative Institute and Harvard Business School, running through simulations, helping individuals understand the need for co-regulations. TESPOC will be willing to give those courses. We shall be willing to train. But there has to be a force. Government officials don't work unless in Sharia Nasemanini, policy Nasemanini. So let's make sure that that policy is then put in to help with the co-regulations that all these issues. Today we've heard about health. I know if the agriculture guys were here, they would have their issues, right? And the mining guys, AI and mining would also have their issues. So let us be cognizant of that, the need to collaborate in as far as regulations are concerned. Yes, there's a mic on the table, please proceed. Where is the other mic?
So maybe I can
proceed.
Yeah. So Juma Salita from Africa Janela. Africa Janela, we are building Afrocentric AI models. And on my thought on the regulation, the AI regulation, ICT bill, first, we are the latecomers in the game. We all know that. There is more to AI than GenAI systems. There are a lot of useful AI systems that existed, that still exist, that are being used in other places or in other countries, where we were caught up in the game because of late preparation or we didn't predict the trajectory. Right now, we want to come in with regulations that to gatekeep areas, to gatekeep the AI development in the country, where we don't have any university in the country that offers any AI certificate, not a graduate or a master's program on AI. We all understand that. So, plus we know ChatGPT, we know OpenAI, we know what Google has, we know Llama. That's all we know about AI, basically most of us. And there's more to it than than to that. And that's what our legislators all know, that they know ChatGPT, they know this. Ben Robert talked about the regulations on drone technology. The regulations on drone technology may be stimulate innovation in the unmanned aerial vehicles that could be used in the military and other areas in the country. Government, remember, each government around the world, they have a portion of the economy that they have this. They say this goes to AI development, research and all that. Do we have that in the country? They are not investing in this technology and they want to gatekeep it. They want to generate revenue from it. From my perspective, like, we have had too many talks on AI since the release of GPT-2, I think. Talks, panels all over. We are talking. We are not building anything. What do we build for? What are we building for Africa? Because yesterday, as I was going through an article on Facebook, I saw a Chinese company that developed a video generator. And I was like, if it was another company in the United States generating that, we will all be knowing that right now. But it's because of Chinese and maybe the media doesn't share that and all that. I think we are up. The same applies to Africa. We have to build something. We have to start building this technology and not just talk about regulations and all that. The other time we were launching an AI agent with Lisa. With an AI agent called Lisa with Finder. Finder is an AI company in the country. So basically the launching were very few of us. But when it comes to talks like this, so many people, I know the budget of this can be used in a very useful way to train AI developers, engineers, on how we can bring these models to different systems. I think that should be the talk, and from now on henceforward, let's not have these many talks that we are talking and don't build anything. When other people start building things, people are talking about robo-taxis and all that, yet we are here talking about regulations. Yeah, I think for the time, that's all I have.
In 1 minute quickly, please, because we are running out of time. Our time ended here at 11, and we need to, yes. However, in response to your
issues, if we do not have a discussion on AI and regulations and policymakers will give us what they have put on the table right now. That discussion, this conversation is considered capacity building to individuals who have to make policy, because those that are developing are not writing the policy. You are busy developing, people are sitting in parliament and passing laws. So decide whether those laws, if you trust them totally, then those laws will be good. And we can continue, we can with the building and forget about the laws. But because those laws impact on your business, those laws will decide on whether your business grows or not, whether your product will go to market or not. You can code for 20 years and write all those, develop those products. But if the law blocks you from entering market, my friend, you will have a very rough time. So these conversations are very critical to build capacity within the ecosystem so that there can be sufficient knowledge and capacity amongst those that have to develop policies and regulations. So just quickly, last comment. It's only one. Then panelists, prepare your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Joan Bessia. I'm the founder and CEO of TechMind South Africa, an AI institution that educates Africa in artificial intelligence, and so far we have been able to educate more than 6 countries around the world, and over 3,000 to a goal of 15,000 this year. And to that, the reason that I'm going to contextualize this in 2 ways, a question and a comment. My question will be, and this could go very easily to the government or to the private sector, is how have we framed what we are doing from an education perspective? I'm speaking from an education perspective as being in the industry, because case in point, like what we were talking about, and I'll direct this to Mukiri, where we're talking about the resistance in the medical industry and the information, lack of information that you're not getting from the people who are working with you to give you data. But the question is, what is your framework as a regulator, as an ethical engineer, as an AI engineer? What is your educational structure? Who knows about what you're asking for? Okay? The question is, how many people do we approach, or how many organizations do we approach and ask them the right questions, or ask them, do they know AI? What is AI? Why am I giving this information? A very good example, I was in a hospital recently, and we were trying to find a medical record of a relative, and we took 5 minutes looking for a ladder for a record to be found from a top shelf. And my question came down to, before we talk about AI, do we have digitization systems? And in that case, let's talk about AI regulation in parallel with digitization. The institutions we are talking about, the people we are working with, are they digitized enough to be able to regulate them in AI? Do they know what AI is? Now, which brings me to the comment where we're talking about our value system. What is our value system today in Africa, in Kenya? What is the value system in educating AI from a non-technical perspective? If you come to my organization and I tell you, for example, the board is working on an AI project, but the customer care at the front does not know about what you are doing, or even the janitor does not understand what you're talking about, then you're failing in terms of getting the right people to give you the information to create to implement AI projects. A case in point, what we're talking about the value system is, as Africans, as Kenya, as the world, are we decolonizing AI enough to make it accessible? And to Kenyan perspective, are we decentralizing AI to make sure that it is known to everyone and sundry? And finally, are we demystifying AI enough to be able to understand it from a non-technical perspective? And I would wrap this up by giving a contrary opinion to my fellow colleague who is talking about making people use AI without making them know they are using AI. We are of the philosophical position that AI is an enabler, and as Jeff Bezos said, so many people have asked, what is the next trend, what is the next innovation, but no one has ever asked, what do I do very well, and how can AI enable me to do this better? So at the end of the day, I think we need to look at this from a decolonization, a decentralization, and a demystification perspective, and educate everyone we come around on AI and generally what it is all about.
Thank you so much. It was supposed to be 2 minutes. It's really gone over.
I thought it's 1.5. Thank you.
So, do we have Dr. Japheth Odhiambo here? No. Okay, because like you're supposed to give some remarks on behalf of the Communication Authority. We still are giving them a chance to come in and share. That said and done, I'm going to give the panelists an opportunity to just give 1 minute, 1 minute. Please be very brief. We are really over our time. So starting from the other end, the ladies, then we finish with the gentlemen. For some reason, they sat together.
My last remark would be with regards to what you mentioned about co-regulation, which has also sort of come up in the room, and the importance of that, and different sectors of areas speaking to each other. So developers speaking with regulators, regulators speaking with developers. So that's just my key takeaway from this, the need for co-regulation and the importance of co-regulation.
All right, myself, my student is on the macroeconomics element. We need to be competitive as a country. If we're to remain as a Silicon Savannah, then we have to do much to ensure that we remain that. And a majority of the African countries are doing the most with regards to AI to ensure that they're competitive and they're ahead of Kenya. So we need to be very aligned with that in our community.
Okay, my final remarks will be in line with there's someone who mentioned building solutions for Africa. And in line with that, I'd like to say that for us to build that, then we'd have to have our GPU, let's say the cloud computing, the processing units, we'll have to have that. So first we should think about having our GPUs and our cloud systems created here to ensure that even if it's in terms of data, the data that we are collecting are controlled by us and not by other entities. Yeah, because if other entities control our data, they can use that against us in many ways, and that has been seen in the past. Yeah, so we ought to develop infrastructure for training the AI modules and ensure that we have the power enough to train those AI models. That's my final remarks. In line with what you say. Otherwise, we think of building solutions for Africa, but instead we're not building solutions for Africa. We're just sharing our ideas to other entities. Yeah.
Yeah, I will re-echo what Chairman Jill said in the beginning. Let's really build the foundations. Let's focus on education. I think as Africa, we cannot meaningfully participate, whether it is in AI or whatever the next revolution will be, if our population is not educated. So AI and data science, and I also mentioned soft skills like critical thinking, creativity, and all of that. Let's build the infrastructure to make sure that we have universal access to internet, AI, and the tools. Let's focus on AI, investing in AI research and development, enabling the startup ecosystem, and also, finally, but not the least, working on ethical frameworks and governance frameworks in order to make sure that we mitigate against the improper use and deployment of AI. Thanks.
I had 2 points, but I'm going to add one more. First, like I said before, I don't know necessarily, my added point is, I don't know if Kenya should be investing in GPUs. Of course, you can encourage for private sector, for a local to do that here. Of course, nothing wrong with that at all. It's very, very expensive. It becomes a race against global people, and it may not be necessary. I fully agree the need to have some ownership of data to develop local models and develop local solutions that use local or non-local models per se. That's just a personal opinion. I think it's about strategies, prioritizing and investing in what's important. and those hardware is really, really expensive. May not be necessary if you can still have control of the data and the models and the solutions and make socio-economic impact, which I think is the end result, I hope. My other two key points were around skills. I think we're taking the lead in that space. We're already training lecturers and training students and training governments on AI, both how to develop models from a technical perspective and a non-technical perspective, but we'll be trying to do more, especially at that TVET level. I think that's a big opportunity to democratize in this aspect, to reach more people across the country. And secondly, I think around supporting local innovation. We have identified some niche areas we're trying to support, like special needs, how AI can be used for those with special needs, and we have a partnership working with UNESCO, KISE, which is part of the Ministry of Education, and others. So I think that should be probably a focus. How do we focus in niche areas where they can have a really big social economic impact? I think special needs and others is around that. And we want to try and do more in that space. If anyone's interested, I'd encourage that kind of investment and targeted approach and targeted solutions. And also a niche where Kenya can become a leader in some spaces. And I think focusing on niche areas where there's huge needs is a good solution in any business world, rather than trying to do mass activities. Thank you.
I'll build up on what Adam has said. For GPUs, start small and only invest more when need be. We are not a vacuum in AI. The fact that you're not building AI does not mean others are not building. If you look hard enough, you'll see there are many brilliant Kenyans that are doing amazing things. The last thing would be focus on the outcome. It does not matter how complex the technology is. The most important thing is what is the outcome. Did it solve the problem? Did we save time? Did we save money? So let's talk of AI as the starting conversation and more talk of this is the outcome we want and we can do this with AI. Thank you.
It's a very nice way of ending because that outcome is the vision that should go into our strategy in terms of where we want to be. And so with that said and done, I'd just like to let all the participants know that the output of this conversation was being recorded. We did enable our Zoom AI. And so we shall see what the Zoom AI does vis-a-vis the actual recording of discussion. Then we will put together a report that we're going to use in two ways. One, the report is going to feed into the strategy task force working group and what they are doing in terms of developing an AI strategy for the country. Then the second thing it's going to do, it's going to feed into our responses to Parliament on the proposal that was tabled as a bill. And we will follow up to make sure that we are getting those feedback on those responses. So we believe that everyone who's here registered one or another, so we have an email address, and we are going to share the feedback with you via the email that you provided when you're registering for either the Zoom or for the in-person attendance. And we shall make sure that we have these reports out as fast as possible in the next 7 days so that everyone can move on and be able to see what are the next things that we need to do. Moving forward, this is the first of the many conversations that we're starting to have that are industry-wide. And for TESPOC members, you need to now get used to interacting with even non-members for these conversations. The next one is going to be a discussion on the startup bill, and we hope that we will have that again in the coming month. So every month we'll be having one looking at policy issues affecting us so that we can be able to address the different range of issues that we have to deal with. When it comes to matters infrastructure, we've got efforts going on the infrastructure side of things with the county governments, and that is going to be our core conversation in the month of October when we have Connect East Africa. So begin to see how you participate in that infrastructure conversation early enough, and let's see how we are able to collaborate so that we can build our ecosystem and have installations within our space, whether it's emerging technologies or existing installations that make space, that make sense. And so I hope that you will have time to participate in our upcoming activities. We will make use of your information to send out updates on our coming activities. But if you want an email from us, kindly report to the desk outside, then let you know that you don't want to be receiving emails from us on events that we are having. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to the MC.
A round of applause for Fiona, please. Amidst all of this policy talk, I think there needs to be a policy on clients who take over the MC's work. You see, she's done everything. Then she gave this to me. Now I'm wondering, she's tidied up everything. I think it's just housekeeping that's left at this particular point in time. We've come to the end of this particular event. Thank you so much, our panelists, for that robust discussion. A round of applause for them, please, as they exit the stage. Oh, you didn't do that part. Okay, fine. Thank you so much for that. Of course, we bring it to a close. If you came in a bit late and didn't get some coffee or grab something to eat, we can do that as we continue the discussion, because there's a lot I felt in the room that probably didn't get to be spoken, on microphone. But now we can have some one-on-one engagement going on as we build up to the next forum for discussion as far as that's concerned. So we bring this to a close. Thank you so much for your time, being here, and your engagement as well. And as Fiona said, I think we see you next month as we discuss the startup bill. Have a good morning or afternoon. Bye-bye. Have a good day. At this point, you can also clap for me. I mean, thank you.